Hello and welcome everyone to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. My name is Scott and we are here to kick off Survivor Series WarGames weekend. We've got a lot to chat about, a lot to be excited about as well, and we'll be doing that right after this.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.
All right, and we are kicking off the action on this Survivor Series week with our special kickoff stream. The WWE aren't doing a kickoff event for this PLE, but that doesn't mean we're not going to get hyped about it, right? We thought it'd be a good idea to still go live and chat Survivor Series with you people. Of course, on day of the PLE as well, we'll have our build-up show. And if you're watching on there at the moment, you might notice that this is a pre-recorded and replayed there as well. But essentially, in my timeline at the moment, just to make this confusing, it is Friday and we are a few hours away from SmackDown, the go-home show, which of course was pre-recorded, and we'll touch on that very soon as well. But we're going to be breaking down the card here. We're going to be talking about what we're most excited to see at WWE Survivor Series WarGames, and maybe a little bit of reminiscing about last year as well, because I've been watching a lot of footage lately about, from last year. Of course, CM Punk's return was heavily featured on WWE socials this past week with that 10-minute kind of mini documentary, if you want to call it that, that behind-the-scenes footage. Incredible to see, and just, man, goosebumps looking back on that moment. Will we get something like that this time round? Well, honestly, I think it's going to be hard to ever top a moment like that in wrestling. It's not often you get a big return like that, is it? So we'll see. But still, I think it's going to be a fun weekend. It's going to be a fun card to predict as well with Survivor Series. We've done a little bit of predictions earlier on this week. Myself, Dan, and Lucas have put our predictions on this very channel. So if you haven't already and you've got time before the PLE, then please go back and check out our predictions video as well. But we broke down each and every one of the matches, and we're going to go in depth and in more detail here on the kickoff and also on the build-up show as well. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. We are the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel, and a big part of what we do is get each other hyped up for the PLE. And we don't just get hype, as Mojo Rawley once said, we stay hype. And we're going to be getting hype not only with the kickoff show, but also with the build-up. But like I say, WWE aren't doing their own kickoff, so we thought, you know what, we'll do one. And here we are. So welcome. Thank you for those joining live or those watching it on demand. Love to hear your thoughts in the comments as far as what you think is going to happen at Survivor Series. What do you think is going to be the match of the night? And do you think we are going to see any surprises? Because I do think there will be a twist and a turn here or there. Quite literally, maybe a turn as far as wrestling terms go. At least. So yeah, lots, as I say, to discuss, but let's go through the card that we're going to be seeing, of course, at Survivor Series. Of course, these kickoff shows that WWE do these days, you usually got, you know, the wrestlers coming out and doing kind of, to be honest, pretty straightforward promos. Nothing too exciting happens on these shows these days. Of course, I keep referring back to the first one, the one at WrestleMania, which was actually might have been about a month before Mania, if I remember correctly. Or at least a few weeks, where, of course, The Rock slapped Cody and all this kind of stuff. And then the other ones since then have all been fun, but basically just been fan events to, you know, sing and dance, really, for the fans, you know, in Lyon, in France for Backlash. Of course, we saw it at the WWE, what's that thing called again? The Experience or something like that in Saudi Arabia. So it's a good chance for these fans to kind of get close, see the superstars and stuff like that. So I've enjoyed them, but I've got to be honest, there hasn't been much storyline progression on them. What I'm getting at basically is that I could probably do some of the promos for these wrestlers here if you want me to. If you really want that kickoff experience, I could probably tell you what some of these guys would be saying anyway. Now, it's not going to be just me on this stream. Lucas is going to be joining me hopefully in a little bit as well. But before he does, again, we'll run through the card and we'll talk about the things we are most looking forward to. Tom Talks Rubbish is here. What's happening, my guy? What's happening with you, my friend? great to have you with us, mate. Thanks for tuning in. Great YouTuber. Go and check his channel out. Of course, I've been interviewed by Mr. Tom Talks Rubbish on his channel as well. Not just me, some very big names in the wrestling media on that channel as well. So go over and support him for what he's doing there as well. But as I said, let's run through the card, guys. Let's talk about what we're going to see on Survivor Series come Saturday at 11 o'clock here in the UK, by the way. A bit of a strange start time for us, but I guess that's, being Canada and all that. But what we've got is a big WarGames match here. Now, as you can see, this graphic shows you Jade Cargill, and she is no longer a part of the match because, as you may have seen a little while ago, she landed a bit awkwardly on a car and she's been replaced by Bayley. Now, the awkward thing about this is WWE have released this graphic officially. They kind of touched it a little bit, at least by hinting on Raw, but she doesn't, spoiler alert, officially get thrown into the match, I think, until tonight SmackDown. But WWE are talking about it anyway, so we're doing the same thing, right? Bayley is in this match, so that's how we're seeing it. Of course, you got Candice LeRae, Raquel Gonzalez, Tiffany Stratton, Nia Jax, and Liv Morgan taking on Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, Bayley, Io Sky, and Naomi. Some big names in this match. But I have to be honest, I'm leaning towards what Lucas said in the video a few days ago on this channel about how the WarGames can be a little messy, particularly when it comes to the women's matches, because they don't often, well, they never feature factions, and I think a big part of WarGames is that faction, trying to defeat a faction or a faction going against a faction, and it's more thrown together with these matches. But saying that, when you look at the stars in this one here, the updated version, don't get me wrong, Jade's a star as well, but she's not going to be featured, it seems. There are some big names, world title winners, future former Hall of Famers as well. So I still think it's going to be a great match. I just kind of in that camp of there's not a lot riding on it, right? Why are they going into the WarGames match? So, spoiler alert for what Lucas was making a point about the other day. If you haven't seen the video already, please check it out on his channel. He's basically arguing for the return of the traditional Survivor Series matches and saying how certain matches would suit that more. And I tend to agree with him on this one here. But the match alone, let's move away from the storyline. Let's talk about the match and the performance that these women might give us tomorrow. Very excited to see what they give us. Now, speaking of which, we mentioned just a moment ago, Jade Cargill was supposed to be in this match, and she's been switched out for Bayley. Now, the storyline that they're playing with at the moment is that, was it Bayley? Is that why she snuck in now? No, I don't think it will be Bayley. Surely it's going to have something to do with Bianca Belair eventually. But there's been conflicting reports over the past few days about the reasoning behind Jade Cargill being taken out backstage. Firstly, we had this ridiculously over-the-top report from WWE saying she broke this, she broke that, she messed up that, she messed up that, this fell off, that fell off. It was a ridiculous list of injuries. And some people were like, oh, that's to really emphasize the fact that apparently she is really injured, people were saying, and she's going to be gone for a few months. And then we were hearing she's going to be gone beyond WrestleMania. And now there are reports going around going, yeah, none of that's true. She's fine. She's fine. Or she's not, at least, she's not injured to that extent, at least. So really interesting, because if it is a long-term thing and it is to kind of make up for something that's legit going on, then that's a shame, having to strip the women's tag titles and things like that. But if it's not and it's all storyline, then I'm interested to see where this goes. Maybe we'll get some sort of progression in this story at Survivor Series. If she is actually injured, then maybe not. Maybe it'll be a few months. It kind of reminds me, if it's legit, it reminds me of when Stone Cold was injured in real life. They did the whole running over. I did it for The Rock. It ended up being Rikishi when he was not even anywhere near that scene come late 1999. It wasn't until early 2000 really where he really started becoming a prominent figure in the WWF. So it seemed a little bit out of place when Austin come back, and it all ended up being that I did it for The Rock storyline. But hey, that's neither here nor there. I know the whole thing was apparently Triple H put him up to it. Anyway, that's we're treading old ground here, guys. Let's stick with the current product, right? It just reminds me of that. Not just because Jade Cargill was splattered on top of a car and it was a car that took out the rattlesnake, but just because it feels like a story that could stretch out quite a long time if it's legit. She comes back a long time away from now, and the story that they may have already been leaning towards, let's be honest, Bianca versus Jade is a money match, might have to be kind of stitched together in a way they didn't expect. And that happens quite a lot in the wrestling industry, right? You can't always kind of go with your original plans because things move fast and injuries happen. And speaking of which, we'll touch on a theory around that later on as well. But I'm really looking forward to this match, guys. Let me know if you think the same. And what do you think about the whole WarGames concept as well? As I say, Luke has done a fantastic video on this channel. If you haven't already, go and check that out. Another comment here from Tom Talks Rubbish. We'll have to get you back on, pal. Yeah, mate, I'd love to. It's again, privileged to be on, and I see you doing great things over there, man. So appreciate that. Appreciate that. Next up, we've got Gunther defending against Damian Priest. And if you haven't seen my predictions from earlier on this week, guys, let me just fill you in. I'm not excited about this one. And I feel bad saying that because I love both these guys. They are fantastic performers. And not only that, nice dudes as well. I've had the privilege of chatting to Gunther with his buddy Ludwig a while back, and also had the great honor of having a one-on-one conversation with Damian Priest a couple of times as well. So look, I'm a big fan of their work, big fan of them, as I say, as people, but I've got to be honest, I don't see anything significant happening here at Survivor Series when it comes to this match. Yes, it might be an entertaining match, but as far as storyline progression, why would they be putting the title back on Priest? As much as I like him, not saying he doesn't deserve a title or anything like that, or he wasn't a good champion, but surely this is going to be a long reign for Gunther here. So it doesn't feel like we're going to see anything significant happen other than, don't get me wrong, the match itself could be quite fun, and let's hope it is. Talking about fun matches, we've got a huge match here. Of course, a bloodline match, well, a double bloodline match in the sense that's the new bloodline versus the OG bloodline, as they're calling themselves, but with a twist, of course, as you can see from the graphic on the left-hand side. CM Punk is now aligned with the OG bloodline via Paul Heyman, of course, to take on the new bloodline and Bronson Reed, which I think is a pretty cool addition in itself. So really looking forward to this one. And I touched on it earlier on about how you can't really always just go with your original plans, right? And CM Punk is a big example of this, right? Clearly, there were plans when he come back this time last year that he was going to go into a feud with Seth. If rumors to believe, we all thought he'd go to WrestleMania and face Seth Rollins. And I think coming back this time, it feels like he's still got a lot in the tank for being a babyface. There's still a lot of big heels to go up against, but I don't think that's what they're going to do. I think they're actually going to turn CM Punk, and I think it might be at Survivor Series to make it quite shocking. And you know, you've got a kind of Paul Heyman effect there as well, and I think he would be turning with him. And again, some would argue it's too soon. There's a lot of money to be made with heels on the opposite side if he's the babyface. But the issue is, again, let's say, who knows, touch wood, hopefully he doesn't, but let's say he gets injured, right? Because again, let's not digging him out or anything like this. Let's be true. For the past few years, had a few injuries and had a fair amount of time outside the ring, both in WWE and AEW, which is a real shame on both runs. So do you really just risk it, or do you just kind of get them moving when they need to go quickly and get him into a storyline with the OG bloodline where he's going against them, and then the Seth Rollins thing coming out of it after that? Who knows? Another possible scenario here, of course, is a Sami Zayn heel turn. And I was really against this pre-reunification of the bloodline, but now that they're back together, I've had that moment. I'm fine with Sami turns heel. I think it'd be a massive twist, and also no one's talking about it now because of the CM Punk situation. So that could be a little red herring, right? It could be all because Sami Zayn's actually going to turn heel. We'll see how that one goes. Another interesting match, of course, is the IC title being defended by Bron Breakker up against Ludwig Kaiser and Sheamus. Now, we did our predictions, as I say, earlier on this week, and all of us picked up on the fact, of course, that Sheamus has never won the Intercontinental title, and it'd be nice for him to get it. We had varying beliefs about whether or not it would be this month, but I think we're all in the same camp of we think he will at some point again, but you never know how our injuries work, right? Let's hope he does tick that one off before he hangs up his boots. But this is going to be an interesting one because, you know, without stating the obvious, there's three ways it can go here, right? Bron could keep the title, and that might be a good idea because hot potato in it is not a good look either. Ludwig, I think, is the kind of person that perfectly fits becoming an IC champion at the moment. And Sheamus, again, for old time's sake, let's just give it to him, right? Sammy Hill, no, says Tom Talks Rubbish. Oh, man, look. It's the shock factor for me, Tom. I think the shock factor alone would be what a moment, and it'd be another way to give a new element to this bloodline storyline, right? So Yeah, I'm in two camps about it. I'm in two camps, but yeah, I appreciate that. Going back to the IC title, though, look, I think I'd be happy if there was a new champion either way. The result I'd be least thrilled about is Bron Breakker keeping it, even though I'm okay with him being the champ. It's just I'm I'm not a fan of the fact that he's won it back already and now he might lose it again. But at the same time, saying that keeping it on him means nothing exciting happens, you know? So yeah, bit split on that one as well, if I'm honest. Again, split three ways, I guess you could say. This one, there's only one way to be split, right? Left or right, LA or Nakamura. Well, I love Nakamura. And he should be winning world titles, not recapturing the US. So just keep it on LA Knight. It just feels a bit pointless to me. Sludge Sports is in the house. Thanks for joining us, mate. Glad to have you back here as well. Of course, this is our weekend kickoff to Survivor Series. Really excited for this show, and I'm sure you guys watching are as well. We'll be hitting you with the build-up before WarGames itself, before Survivor Series WarGames, I should say, itself on Saturday as well. But if you are watching the replay of this on the Saturday stream, stay tuned. The build-up's coming next. But again, strong card, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think is going to happen and what you most looking forward to. I see Tom Talks Rubbish is not a fan of the idea of Sami Zayn turning, but I do think that is one of the possibilities in this big WarGames match. And like we said earlier on, with the difference between the men's one and the women's one, like although the men have two randoms in there in a way, at least it's faction versus faction. Like I actually think they should have made it 4-4, if I'm completely honest. And I just hope that the reason they've not done that is because they've got a big storyline twist. Now, the easy assumption would have been that a new member of the bloodline or the OG bloodline comes into this, like a new member of their family joins either side of the split, or something to do with The Rock. You know, there's always going to be talk about The Rock when it comes to the bloodline, but also talk about The Rock when it comes to Survivor Series. Of course, debuted at Survivor Series as well. So, got to remember, a few months ago, he came out at, was it Bad Blood? One of those PLAs, I think. Yeah, for no reason. We ain't seen him since. Felt like a waste of return, if I'm honest, because it kind of took away from Jimmy's return as well. Yeah, it is what it is. Sludge says we're underrated. Ludwig Kaiser, I feel like he has an actual chance to win this title. Yeah, I got to say, man, I really agree with that. I do think Sheamus feels kind of like the story to tell because of the story they were telling about 2 odd years ago now at Clash, and he didn't win it, which was a real shame. So I think it just it feels natural, right? I think Ludwig, I said it on my predictions. He looks like someone that would carry that title well. I could picture it, and he's in that, you know, that period of his career. He's in that stage of his career, but also in that part of the card, really, you know, where he's getting into kind of prominent storylines, and he works that style, you know, a style that you could see someone again holding the IC title as well. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the idea of Ludwig Kaiser winning it. I know Lucas had a bit of a different idea. He was talking about a rift essentially between the two. As far as him and his friend from Imperium, of course, Gunther, and him losing here could lead to kind of some sort of backlash from Gunther, therefore. But yeah, be interested to see. I mean, again, if I say who I want to win these matches, I'll go quickly with you now. I want the bad guys to win, even though I think the good guys are going to win in this one. Oh, wrong graphic again. I want Gunther to win because I don't think there's any need to give Damian Priest the title. I want the new bloodline to win, and not saying I'm the biggest fan of the new bloodline. I just think they need a win. I want Ludwig to win, and I want LA Knight to win because I love Nakamura. But again, if that was a different title in that graphic, I'd be saying Nakamura. You don't need to win the US title again. Sheamus, again, going back to him. Soft spot, second choice. What we're going to do now, guys, is like I say, SmackDown is coming up very soon, right? It's in a few hours' time. But you may have already heard it's taped, right? It's already happened. So what we're going to do, we're going to run through some of the results from SmackDown. If you don't want to hear the spoilers, guys, mute me just for a few moments. I'm just going to run through these spoilers. There's a graphic down the bottom here to let you know That's what we're talking about. If you tune in live and you see us with this graphic up or anything like that, just mute us. When you see the graphic gone, it is safe. All right. So let's talk a little bit about SmackDown by basically previewing the card for what we're going to see on SmackDown. I'll let you know kind of what happens. Right. So you've got a triple threat match on SmackDown coming up for the who's going to advance essentially in the US Championship tournament. Well, the winner here is. I feel bad saying spoilers, guys, but keep it muted. The winner here is going to be Michin. Coming up after that, SmackDown as well. You've got Nakamura, who debuts a new theme song. Now, he's got a new theme song. I've heard it online. I've seen footage from people at the show. It is his current theme song, but kind of slowed down. Sort of like what they've done to Balor's theme songs, a bit of a remix essentially. But I actually quite like it. It suits him. What a guy, man, to have all these cool theme songs, even going back to his Subconscious theme song in New Japan. Cody Rhodes is facing off against Carmelo Hayes. You know what? There's not much to tell you about that one, so I won't even bother spoiling it. And then you've got Jey Uso is facing off against Jacob Fatu. And the winner of this gets the advantage at WarGames, and it is Jacob Fatu in his first singles match in WWE on the main roster. As far as I know, he wins against Jey Uso. Now, those that are still listening in and are okay to listen to this, don't comment this in down below or anything like that. We don't want anyone coming back to kind of be spoiled. If you're watching this on Saturday, you're thinking, what the heck? This is all common knowledge. Well, anyway, it's Friday in my timeline. And also, there's going to be a segment between CM Punk and Roman Reigns, which wasn't in front of the live audience. That was actually, I assume taped backstage. So that's what we've got to look forward to on SmackDown tonight. And what we'll do now, we'll take away that banner so that anyone that may have muted us knows it is now safe to join us on the conversation. Once again, guys, SmackDown spoilers are over. Don't you worry. I just thought we needed to cover it for those who wanted a little bit of chat there, because, hey, it's before SmackDown. We need stuff to talk about, right? And it's a bit awkward previewing a show that everybody knows was filmed a week ago, and a lot of stuff that happened on that show has been leaked online for obvious reasons. So anyway, tape shows, I understand them, because this time around, of course, it's about wrestler welfare, and it's Thanksgiving, right? It's the holiday week, which, by the way, anyone that celebrates watching this stream, happy Thanksgiving to you. It's not really something we do over here in the UK, although I've had the privilege of going to an American friend's Thanksgiving dinner, and it was lovely. So I'm sure you've had a great time this week. So happy Thanksgiving to anyone out there that is celebrating. Sludge says, I hope Shinsuke gets a new theme. His theme song right now is really bad. Again, stay tuned to SmackDown, but we won't talk any more spoilers beyond that because we're done with spoilers now. But Sludge Sports also says Sheamus will get his moment. Do you mean this weekend, Sludge, or do you mean in general? Because you were saying Ludwig deserves a chance, right? So where do you fall on that? Let's bring in a special guest now, of course, member of the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling team. I'm joined by Lucas. How you doing, mate? Oh, got you muted. Hold on, there we are.
Okay, no, back now. Hi, guys.
How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm decent. It feels weird doing it the day before.
I know. It's a bit odd. And the thing is, because we're going to play a replay of this on the build-up as well. I'm talking as if I'm in two timelines, Friday and Saturday. So a bit confusing. Oh, just an update on the thing here. Sludge says no in general at Mania for sure. Mania, big call. So what we're talking about there, Lucas, you may have guessed, is the situation with the IC title. Of course, we've already done our predictions earlier on in this week, and we were all kind of in the same boat as far as thinking that maybe Sheamus might be doing it because he's never won it before and all that kind of stuff. But we all had kind of varying opinions. I was saying that I felt like Ludwig would look good with the title around his waist. He feels like the kind of person that would carry that title well for the style of wrestler he is, for the position he's in the card at the moment, for the kind of period he's in his career as well. It feels like a natural progression. So I actually would really be up for seeing Ludwig, and it would be a shame if Sheamus didn't win it because I want him to win it at some point. But how are you feeling going into Survivor Series when it comes to the IC title?
I think it's a bit of a tricky one, really, because Bron Breakker should have won the belt earlier than he did originally. And in my opinion, he also shouldn't have lost it to Jey Uso, particularly if he was just going to bounce it back onto Bron Breakker. So if this had been a situation where Bron Breakker had beaten Sami Zayn on the first occasion, beaten him on the first occasion, or if even he had been the person to defeat Gunther originally at WrestleMania, then I think I'd maybe sit a bit differently with this. And I just feel like, as much as I understand this Sheamus wanting to complete his Grand Slam thing, I think I'll also compare it to something which will happen next year when obviously John Cena, he also needs that belt to complete a Grand Slam. And I just think potentially, I guess Cena doesn't need it anyway, but I think Sheamus, I could also argue, doesn't need it either. But I guess if it is kind of the one kind of rider he has, that's the belt he wants to win, wants to hold, then it might just be, but particularly in Triple H's WWE, it's probably quite likely to happen. But whether it happens tomorrow night, or I guess I'll just say whether it happens at Survivor Series, I don't think it will.
Yeah, I'm the same, man. I don't think that they've spent as much time as they did the last time around. It's more that the fans have realized, because of the last time they told the same story of Sheamus going for it. A big part of that was just simply, banger after banger type stuff and all that. But then they really did focus on Sheamus never having won that title. And they haven't really done it this time. And it's more that fans have just remembered that story last time. Yeah. And of course, not only the same title, but you've also got another member of Imperium within the match as well. So it is kind of one of those things that you're going to be reminded of. But I'm with you, man. I think he will, and I think he should. I just don't think it's going to be right now. And I think it makes more sense if we're talking about the product at the moment, it makes more sense giving it to Ludwig Kaiser. Because if we're honest, as much as Sheamus was pushed, 2 years ago, and maybe even going into a year ago with the Brawling Brutes, if you go back 3 to 6 months, they've really not used him at all. So it'd be strange for him. And that was weird because he got this second win with the Brawling Brutes, right? So it was weird that he dropped off so drastically. But to suddenly give him the IC title feels a bit odd as well.
Yeah, he got injured. I mean, obviously, Father Time is kind of catching up a bit, isn't it? And it is bonkers to think someone like Sheamus, who I'm sure you remember his debut through ECW, and then obviously onto the main roster and winning the WWE Championship over John Cena.
What a weird way to do it, though.
Very weird way
through a table.
But I mean, a win's a win, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
And he and the thing is as well, he held the World Heavyweight Championship, and he then just actually rewatched. I've been watching Survivor Series matches for the past couple of weeks. I just recently rewatched Survivor Series 2015, which of course was the last time Sheamus won a World Championship, as he cashed in on the tournament winner Roman Reigns to become WWE Champion. And that to date is his last World Championship reign.
And he didn't have it for long, did he? If I remember correctly.
No,
I think he had it for that long.
Didn't he lose it in the Rumble match?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, wasn't it? Yeah, 2016 was the Rumble that Triple H won, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. God.
So, I don't know how they got. I need to think how
did they get from
to that.
I can't remember either.
But
even that was weird because so he won. He cashed in on Roman. I was watching it the same as well, mate, just the other day because it was on the WWE. They do those loops on YouTube of matches for the PLE, upcoming PLE historic matches, and it showed that. And I forgot all about it. It weren't until his music hit, I was like, oh yeah, he wins this. I completely forgot.
It's a very, very forgotten title reign. It seems to be so forgotten. I'm now on Wikipedia trying to figure out, did he lose the belt in the Rumble? I believe he did. I don't believe the belt.
That's a weird way to lose a belt because usually when they've done the Rumble thing, isn't it because it's vacant?
I remember around the time, everyone basically, it felt like it was being booked for Roman Reigns to win.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of was in on the whole. Well, no, Triple H is going to come at number 30 and win.
Yeah.
And it felt bonkers at the time, but as we've kind of seen since in WWE, it does seem that You know, they brought Goldberg back out of retirement, and he was beating people like the Fiend. You know, they brought, you know, everyone really. You know, since then to just keep coming back. So it does feel a bit like, oh yeah, normal. Oh no, okay. So Roman Reigns won the belt back 3 weeks later, in a very dramatic title versus career match that was so dramatic, and it took place on an episode of Raw.
Oh god.
And then so Roman Reigns was a champion, and he was forced. That's it. He was forced into obviously defending the belt inside the Royal Rumble match, becoming the second person having to do so. So the first person ever having to defend the belt within the Rumble. The 1992 Rumble was obviously for the WWE.
Is that when Hogan won? Was that Hogan?
Flair.
Flair won that. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Flair won that.
Yeah.
You know, at the time setting a record, which obviously has been broken about 10 times. But yeah, what I'm getting at essentially is, I forgot our original point with this, but we were talking about Sheamus, but Sheamus, sorry, this is what happens to Red Noise sometimes. So Sheamus, I think, you know, if we say that, look, he's had 10 years basically since then, since that Survivor Series moment.
Oh, yeah.
Very brief world title reign, the final world title reign he got. And since then, though, like, he has just gone from like strength to strength to strength, though. Like, everything he's done, he's always been good in it. And I think maybe, you know, years ago, I remember when The Godfather won the IC title, and obviously it kind of came out that afterwards it was because essentially, by all accounts, it seems the man behind the gimmick, Charles Wright, is just an outstanding human being. He's just a really nice guy, got on with everyone. It was seen as like, you know, he had to put up with gimmick change after gimmick change, and put up with a lot of the Vince McMahon / the creative, kind of bad creative at the time. And it was seen as, you know, and he only heard it for like 2 weeks. I think like 2 weeks period of title reign he got. But it was always seen as that kind of like, okay, like, we get that maybe you're not the best wrestler for this belt, but, you know, you've kind of put up with our rubbish for a long time. You know, here's that kind of belt. And, you know, if Triple H is kind of thinking along that kind of line, I know obviously Sheamus is a better worker than the Godfather, before anyone at me, but I think, but, you know, if Triple H is thinking kind of like a heart booking, I guess, kind of, okay. And Triple H obviously as well, like, you need to remember, Sheamus was the final person that Triple H worked with as a full-time wrestler.
Yeah.
You know, because he did the Mania match against Sheamus, followed by a Backlash match in 2010, I believe. And then Triple H, went to a part-time schedule, which is bonkers to think that's now almost been 15 years. And Triple H became a part-time wrestler. Yeah. Now getting on, I think, just over 3 years since Triple H had his final match. You know, Triple H and Sheamus, you know, I think Triple H and Sheamus used to go to the gym together, I think.
That was always the rumours, wasn't it? When Sheamus was new, everybody was like, oh, they're gym buddies, and that's why Sheamus was being pushed. That was always the thing that people used to say. How true that was, I don't know. But you can kind of see it. They seem like the kind of people that would get on with each other. And they've, you know, he's had a great career, Sheamus, as you say, clearly, and I think you do at some point have to get along with Triple H to get something like that in the past 2 decades. So they must be good pals in some way.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately though, I do think that Sheamus, I'm in your camp of, I think Sheamus will get this eventually. I just don't think it'll be tomorrow, and maybe that is because it's linked to the other mid-card title match, because I think that belt's going to change hands. I don't think they're going to do both. Okay. But then I wouldn't be as surprised if, depending on this is one of those when you watch the match order, maybe the US title match goes on first. It probably won't do WarGames bookend, don't they? Yeah. At the end, but if it goes on second, let's say, and then LA Knight is still a champion, potentially, good to see the IC title changing.
Yeah, it starts to become a bit clearer, like you say, depending on is this a long-term booking, or is this about the way they book the night and it gives things away? I mean, I'm actually the complete opposite. So I think the IC title is changing hands. I don't think the US title is changing hands, but I think that's more my heart, because I want either of these two men without the title to come out with the title. And on this match, I don't want it to change for the sake of changing, because as much as I love Nakamura, big fan of LA Knight as well, I just don't think Nakamura needs this, because I know in your predictions you were saying like he, this could be a big run for him. This could be the US title run that does mean something in his career, because, previously been a little lackluster with the mid-card titles. But for me, he should have beaten Seth, that's how I feel about it. He should have been a world champion. And every time they bring him in and he doesn't win something, it just feels unbelievable. And even if he does win, I'm just like, why? You're giving him the prize he's already had. Like, is it really a reward for good work or long tenure in the company and, you've had a lot of crap, or is it really a reward is what I'm saying to someone like Nakamura? So that's why I'm like, I'd rather it just stayed on LA Knight for that reason. But yeah, again, you're in the opposite camp. So let me know how you feel.
Regarding Shinsuke Nakamura, I've always been a fan of him. I've been on the channel before. I'm not the biggest fan of LA Knight. But in saying that, I do appreciate that, he has done a lot of good work for this belt. He's defending it regularly. He's been that visible champion in the ring, visible in-ring champion, let's say, because Cody obviously is making several appearances, but there's definitely been a shift in how that belt is portrayed and defended. And I think that's a shift we're going to continue to see in the Netflix era of WWE. And beyond. I think that's just how that belt is now going to be done, and we have to like it or lump it, I guess, because that's what the powers that be have dictated, that the main in WWE is now not very active in ring, and that's just how we are. But I think in terms of I think I've always felt LA Knight is just kind of average at best in the ring, and I don't want to sound bad, but I just think, fans, obviously he's very over with the crowd, but I think doing a story now where he has a credible villain to go up against, that's what's been missing in this title reign. He hasn't had a credible villain. How do you make a credible villain? You make him the person to beat LA Knight. And I think, if they decided that Shinsuke is the person to do it, because Shinsuke has kind of appeared back again, I think that's the way to do it. But perhaps it's not Shinsuke. But I don't see what the bigger picture would be if it's not Shinsuke. Hence my prediction being that I think Shinsuke needs to win. But who is next? And again, I'll caveat this: who is next that's not like part of doing something already, like the Bloodline, where you're then going to take, if you take the belt and put it in some, with the Bloodline, yes, you've got credible villains, but you've also got people who are already entangled in a main story. And SmackDown becomes a one-story show, and already, you've got, your tag champions fighting for any sort of ring or TV time. Do you want to do the same thing with the US title scenario, where you're going to put that in and essentially have over half your show be one story? And this is the problem with the Bloodline, which obviously, we are seemingly, it seems like we're like 100 years into it, because Rikishi had more children. They all have more children.
We've got a long way to go.
This is the problem it creates, though, because on a serious note, it has meant that, as good as that storyline has been at times, and can be again, don't get me wrong, I think we are getting back to the Bloodline story being really, really good again. It is also half the show. SmackDown is going to 3 hours in January, which should help a little bit. But let's just hope they add other stuff
and not more Bloodline. A third Bloodline faction joins.
Someone said ages ago, it was quite recently, but I think it's around Mania time, actually. Someone actually said ages ago they should just have the Bloodline have their own show.
They could do that. I mean, they could fit it out, but it would get a little stale after a while, but they could fit it out for sure.
Because how WCW tried the NWO having their own pay-per-view. Sold out, yeah. I think in 98, I want to say.
It might be 97. And they also did I think they did a Nitro as well, where they tried to do it, NWO Nitro. Because the Bloodline story is there for you, really, in terms of a show, because you could have, obviously, they've had various belts within the Bloodline, and that sets up a simple main event. If obviously you have the tag champs be part of your Bloodline, or if you involve the US title or whatever, you always have your main headline Bloodline guy, like Solo Sikoa. You've got a tag team in there, so you've got, and then obviously you just put them against the people that you've seen them booked against anyway, but it's just its own kind of thing. It's such a weird idea, but it kind of, I get it though. Going back to Nakamura, I think the weird thing, and kind of predicting this match as well, I don't know about you, but I always find it's great doing these streams because you get someone else's opinion, you bounce back and forth, you start to change your own mind, and you think, oh, actually I see it that way as well. But what I've started to realize as well, that is it's also difficult to predict things when it comes to certain wrestlers and the period we're in, because we're still very much in like this kind of, well, how does Triple H book things? I think I know, but actually I'm not too sure. Like this suggests this, but this, we haven't quite seen this yet. And then on top of that, you get things like, again, like Nakamura, a person who we are relying on our memory of how he's been booked in the past. But again, that was under a completely different regime. All we've really seen is that example of where he did go up against Seth and didn't win it, which again was a bad decision in my part, in my thinking. But so, and it's strange because you think you know how to predict something, and then you're like, oh, hold on a minute, everything I know about this situation comes from something that isn't relevant anymore in some ways, you know. This could be a new thing, like you say, could be a different type of US title run for him. And it is kind of odd that I'm such a fan of Nakamura that I don't want him to win it, because I feel like he deserves more. And that's, you know, I was kind of similar about the Sami Zayn situation when he won the IC. I was like, and everybody was emotional, and you know, that emotional thing from I forget her name already, like she's been gone a month, and of what disrespect that is, ring announcer,
Samantha Irvin.
That's it, Samantha Irvin. You know, cracking up and emotional, and I'm like, he's won the IC belt. Like, you had this about 2 years ago. It wasn't that big of a deal. Like, it was a great moment, it was a great match, but for me, it should have been more. And they treated it as if he had won the world title, which really bugged me. It's the same here with Nakamura. I think it's because I feel like he deserves more, and I'd be disappointed in him winning this because it would be a sign of this is all it's ever going to be. Which, I mean, don't get me wrong, it feels like that anyway. The fact he's still with the company is more of a surprise, if I'm honest, because
I mean,
it felt recently that he might not be.
When they did the recent round of releases, that Nakamura's name was apparently on a list or going to be.
Yeah, I did hear that rumor. Yeah,
you know, it hasn't come true.
Yeah, good.
But you know, again, you never know how true those things are as well. You know, we must state that no one kind of confirmed it. It was just a case of it. His name was apparently talked about, and obviously he has been tenured in the company. Like, he's been there since 2017 NXT, and then main roster, I think the start of 2018 kind of thing. So you know, he's been around. You know, and he's had, like you say, you know, I've said and you said, he's had these kind of mid card title reigns previously with the US and the IC belt actually. Has he been a tag champ? I don't think he has. Oh yeah,
I can't picture it. I mean, he would have been thrown together with someone. The only one I remember him being any kind of link with was Boogs, and I don't think they won it together. No. I think Nakamura held the US when Boogs was around, or something like that.
Yeah, he did, because Boogs he's like basically hype man, wasn't he? Like,
yeah, I enjoyed that. I got to be honest. Sludge Sports says Nakamura needs to go NXT with the NXT title, of course, referring back to his early days in the company, and he was NXT champion, and you know, it was always a concern at the time. I remember a lot of us
he won the tags with Cesaro.
Did he?
Yeah.
I don't remember that at all. When was that? 2018?
No, I think it was after that. I think it was like 2019.
2019?
Yeah,
it might have been, because that was the same year that I went to Mania that year, and what do you call them? The Major Brothers won the tag titles in a pre-show. So that shows you what they were thinking of the tag titles at the time.
I'm just trying to see.
Sludge says it was Extreme Rules in 2020.
Yeah.
Wow, so during Thunderdome era.
Yeah, I remember now.
Had a faction with Sami Zayn. Oh yeah, they did, didn't they? It was around that whole kind of conspiracy Sami Zayn storyline. Wow, good knowledge, Sludge, and you, Lucas.
Fair enough. So yeah, they won the tag belts. They held them for about 3 months before dropping them to the New Day.
I didn't even remember them teaming. They held them for 3 months. Bloody hell, what does that say?
It was
man.
To be fair, but 2020, very very weird.
A lot was going on. Yeah.
But yeah, okay. But Shinsuke, I think it's hard to know, because there's a lot of people you should group in with him, though. People who they were at one point kind of, you know, at the top of the card, challenging the belts and stuff, didn't get them, and they found themselves obviously now still in the company. But how do they get back to that where they were before? Because even start of the year or end of last year, they obviously had the Cody Rhodes and Shinsuke feud, you know, and that was to kind of set him up for, you know, what was to come. Cody up for what was to come, and obviously Cody's obviously done that and been there. And then even when you think they were testing out the bull rope stipulation on house shows with Shinsuke and Cody, because Shinsuke has seemed to be that kind of guy they've kind of put a lot of trust in. I think even on House here, recently Shinsuke was on them near the top of the card. So one has to imagine that they are putting some faith in him. There is still some faith in him to do stuff. And obviously, people, and anyone would say, "Oh, she's age." It's like, well, everyone there's now old. Everyone's old there now. Like, not sort of way. Like, everyone's tenured. You're talking. You're not talking. It's bonkers. Like when you see, Kevin Owens and his son now. His son's huge, and he's like an adult now. He's an adult, and it shows you how long these people have been in the company for.
Yeah,
their kids are now like adults, or
they could be getting into developmental and that.
In developmental and stuff. So we're not talking about this whole young roster. And that's not even a slight on it. It's the fact that obviously WWE have. They've collated wrestlers over a number of years, and they've treated, I feel, a lot of them quite well. Obviously, there are also always the kind of horror stories, and all that kind of stuff. People who would sit the other side of the fence and maybe want to slag them off. But I think, they've kept a large proportion of these people seemingly happy. I mean, we mentioned today is now Sami Zayn, and someone who in 2019 it was Sami Zayn and Owens with a sign with AEW. What difference we could be talking about right now in terms of what's going on? They would have been game changing for the business.
Especially since that time frame, arguably they've both had their most important periods of their careers and most impressive and most well used. I remember when it looked like Kevin Owens was out the door. We interviewed him. And there was a vibe. There was a vibe at the time. I won't go much deeper into the behind the scenes stuff, but not that he was rude or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. He was lovely and really kind of supportive for our interview. But you could tell, everybody knew, everybody in the room knew that why have they brought him out? Is he not leaving? And then he didn't. And I remember when he re-signed thinking, is he really, he must have been told something. I think even on streams, I've got a vague memory of being like, he's either winning the belt or the Rumble because he's re-signed for something, right? Yeah, and then later on, of course, he faces Stone Cold Steve Austin. And since then, he's just amazing stuff. All right, he hasn't had the world title reigns like he had before that, as far as therefore being heavily featured on top of the card. But he's been heavily featured in some of the most important storylines since he re-signed, and some of the most fun matches and moments that I'm sure as a performer you were just so grateful for. And Sami Zayn, my goodness, that is a completely different, whole nother level. Do you know what I mean? He is made, his career is made in the last few years since that period, and like you say, going to the opposite side, who knows what they would have done. But like you say, they've kept these big names happy somewhat, even if they've not given them the world title treatment. Some of them hard ever, and some of them not as much as maybe they should have, even if they won it once or twice. But with Nakamura, it feels like he's going to end up being on that list of people when we look back now and you're like, can't believe Jake the Snake never won a world title. Can't believe Rayson never won a world title. Can't believe Mr. Perfect. They're the three, right? Roddy Piper, did he win a world title?
No, he didn't win.
So it's those four, really, when you think about it, they're the four that you always hear. And for a while, there's not really been anyone like that, because let's be honest, there was a time when they were getting any old Tom, Dick, or Harry the world title and hot potato in it quite a bit. And now it feels like I wish these guys benefited from that, like Nakamura, Dolph. I wish got it a few more times.
But that's the thing. If you switch it over to AEW, though, they've created the problem where potentially too many people have held it, particularly in the recent year or so. Samoa, and when you look at the trajectory of people once they lose the belt and where they go, look at Samoa Joe, world champion, almost a year ago. I don't think he's done anything in ages. Swerve obviously is now feuding with Lashley. Fair enough.
Yeah,
that's a big thing for him. He was champion recently. Bryan Danielson obviously at the moment looks like he's retired, but I don't think he is. But is he? It would have to imagine he could come back and do something big. But yeah, you look at the amount of world champions they've had, this year. And I think, a lot of these people in WWE are victims, sadly, of the Roman Reigns thing. And that long reign that he had, it's always that case of you could have given the belt to this person here, this person here. In terms of Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, I think something I've learned from a lot of things is sometimes all the reasons that fans think and care about don't actually matter to the individual performers, and they're looking at like just one little thing that might just tip the scale sometimes, and they're always very different. And I think in my head how I'm thinking it, I think someone like Kevin Owens looking at the fact of, look, go to AEW and Tony Khan will write you a check with more zeros at the end of it than you can imagine. You wrestle once a week, pay-per-views once every few months, and you will have whatever, someone like Kevin Owens could go in with a lot of power, a lot of weight to his contract and say, look, I only want to work this person, this person, this person.
Yeah.
I want to win the belt then. I want to do this. He could probably just book himself, to be fair, in AEW. But it's just, I think he's still very much, end of the day, his son is called Owen. His favourite wrestler of all time is Owen Hart. Like, he spoke about this like several times. He's a massive fan of Stone Cold. He's a massive fan of the Attitude Era. He's a massive, he's a massive fan of a lot of the WWE product. I think, his son wants to wrestle as well. He knows, and we all kind of know, that the WWE do have the best performance center like in the world, bar none, for this kind of stuff. And so he's looking at that kind of stuff and thinking, look, I may never get the world title again here. I may never be the last match on the card of the busiest feud, but I'm going to get these little sprinkles given to me, like the Stone Cold match. The stuff he was able to do with the Bloodline and the stuff he does in the WarGames matches and all that kind of stuff that highlight just the amazing things he can do in the ring. And he can get that under the bubble of the WWE. And similar to someone like AJ Styles, obviously spoken about it previously, that was he's a Christian and he wants to be involved with a promotion that is obviously family friendly, that his kids can watch, and that shares the values that he does. Though I have to say, he might be turning a blind eye on the product a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, it depends what documentary you watch, really.
Because there was they had like stuff like adultery and stuff. But I still see his thing. He kind of more getting at, look, as much as he probably understands there is some of that stuff that exists, but it's not like Attitude Era WWE where it's like all over the show, and even AEW to an extent where the style means that it's just more extreme. But I think people overall, like, there's always that one thing that we don't know what makes that person kind of tick one way or the other. And I think, but yeah, it definitely would have been a game-changing thing then. To the Shinsuke, who was talking about originally, I think obviously if he was to have got released in the last round, I think there would have been kind of what I'd call like mild outrage, I guess. There'd be a kind of, I don't think there's no release to WWE in my way at this stage in their life is going to be kind of game changing. I mean, they're going to be like going to be a killer for them. The machine will keep going. If Roman Reigns wants to leave, like, it will be big.
But they will keep on.
They will keep turning, and they'll find someone else. But I think with Shinsuke, it's a case of, people go, oh, we go back to Japan. But I think he's spoken quite a lot about how he doesn't really want to go back to Japan. It kind of feels like he's kind of completed Japan.
And the cool thing is, to WWE's credit, they let him do that stuff as well. Like, he did a few matches in Japan. Was it the beginning of last year? I think he's doing another one the beginning of next year as well. And they let him work for those promotions
as well, haven't they?
Yeah, so I mean, he's not working with New Japan, which is where he, had his bread and butter before. But and I do see it there, and I've always seen it like that. That eventually he will leave WWE. I thought if they backfired and gave him a ridiculous gimmick or something like that, 2 years later he'd be back in New Japan, and everybody would love to return. And at least we could look forward to that if it went wrong. But it hasn't gone wrong. It has been a good WWE career. It's just not been what it could have been in some ways. And I'm sure he's got disappointments with that. But I don't know the man, but you hear things trickle through, and you think. I get the impression that he is pretty content and happy with things he's had over there in America, So in some ways, it's not a surprise. Like you say, we don't know what wrestlers want. We don't know how they feel fulfilled personally and professionally, and what kind of, rocks their boat, so to speak, he's had a good career.
Yeah, I think so. I think a big part of it also might be, as much as perhaps he's not now getting what he wants, he's trying to make it so that in the company there's a voice, obviously, for his style and for people from his land, from Japan. Like, I guess obviously you can only fly the flag, while you're on the ship. Flying from the ship, go.
Yeah.
And I think he, wants to make sure that he potentially, and people like Asuka as well as other people in the company, if they flying that flag, I think they need to make sure that there is that representation for them. And they could all leave and go back to Japan, like that's fine. But it's a case of now, because even I was thinking the other day watching NXT, and Julia has she debuted about a month or two ago, and I can see that they are gearing her up for very good things. You have to imagine that, and at the moment Asuka's injured. You have to imagine, if they end up doing like someone goes down to NXT or someone goes up to the main roster to have like a random match, and we get Julia versus Asuka, like that could be one where a nice like kind of full circle moment, because Asuka again, like she's got to be pushing 40, maybe even in her 40s now, and again no shade on that, like by all means people can wrestle past that age, but nowadays, but it is still a case of you've got young stars coming in the business, and I think it's very important that people who do have the opportunity to stay versus leaving and going back to Japan or going to AEW, like stay to show, but look, like it is going to be good here for you. It will kind of all work, I think Shinsuke struggled mainly because, and the same reason, it's weird why this keeps happening, but the same reason why majority of kind of the Japanese wrestlers have failed is because of the difference in the presentation of the product in WWE versus Japan. And I think the best thing Triple H kind of did around the end of 2022, end of 2023, start of 2024, was obviously giving Shinsuke the promos but having the subtitles. I just think, because one area where at the moment NXT with Julia and with just to not just bash up the Japanese wrestlers, Stephanie Vicaire, are kind of failing is trying to give these people who English isn't their first language, kind of in-ring long promo segments. They tried with Julian having a translator as well, and it just made the promo just not flow, because especially when you're up against Roxanne Perez, who I think, although she's not like ultra charismatic, I think she's very good at what she does. Very well spoken at what she does, and I think when you're kind of just exposing yourself, to just look worse off. But I think with Shinsuke, that was probably the best thing that Triple H did, was giving the subtitles and just kind of giving that eerie kind of feel. Obviously, someone mentioned about theme songs and stuff. I'm not too sure what theme he's been using.
So I was going to say, actually, I do enjoy the presentation that he's kind of portraying at the moment. That it has been quite cool. His new character, his kind of twist to his character as a heel. And again, it is a bit of a SmackDown spoiler, but it's not a massive one. So yeah, they have got a new theme song, and I saw it shot from the audience, and obviously I haven't seen what this looks like on SmackDown yet. But the smoke and the way the camera was kind of filming it looked pretty cool. Like, I have to say, it did look like a cool entrance. So I'm liking what he's doing. Like, again, this is about. I am a big fan of his work.
More, do you not think? Like,
it does. Yeah, it does make me think I might win.
Amazing feel for someone to just have him lose. Like,
yeah, true.
Again,
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know where he goes to next if he does lose. This is my thing. Like, does he go to like another feud, like maybe a rematch? I mean, I guess it's a thing. They are, Saturday night main events coming up in a couple of weeks. Raw on Netflix, which is going to be huge.
Yeah, some very big shows coming up, man. And then you got the Rumble after that.
I think they have used the phrase, pay-per-view or PLE level for the first the Raw on Netflix. Yeah. We're not talking just an average episode of Raw.
It's going to be massive.
It feels a bit like when they were setting up Raw 1000, all those years ago now.
And do you remember Raw Homecoming on the USA Network as well?
It was Stone Cold stunned all the McMahon family.
Oh, yeah, and Linda went, ooh.
Yeah.
So awkward.
2005.
Yeah, I love that show. It's that kind of period where we also, ironically, had a few Saturday night main events as well. I love those kind of specials they were doing around that period. And again, we've kind of come back into that now. Just before, we'll move on to another match in a moment. But final kind of few things on Nakamura and LA Knight. Again, I feel like Killy put on LA Knight makes more sense because it feels like it's ironically degrading to Nakamura in some way, even though I really think it's uplifting to certain wrestlers. But that's only because Nakamura is passed with mid-card titles anyway. And your kind of thinking was, if Nakamura doesn't win it, then who's next? And I get where you're coming from there, but that's where it kind of makes me think, well, this is the Triple H era. We are getting long-term storylines and long-term title reigns. So it doesn't mean who's next won't always be obvious, because LA could have this for another 6 months. It's one of those kind of things. So my other side of it, my thinking is the other side of it, where it's like, if Nakamura wins it, then who's next? Who beats who's Nakamura feuding with? So, and where does LA Knight go? So I don't know. It's a complicated one, and especially when, like you say, the Bloodline take over most of the show anyway.
Yeah, I think. The thing is, I think though, what I will just say to end this is, I think that it is good seeing the mid-card titles defended at Survivor. Yeah. Obviously, Survivor Series heavily known for tag team matches of various kind. Obviously, the main events at this show are both WarGames matches, which at their heart are tag matches. And I think so. It's important to have these singles titles being defended. And obviously, it's been a long while, I think, for IC title at least. I can't remember last time.
Yeah, I was going to say, having both of them does feel special,
Yeah, and
it shouldn't, but that's just the climate we've been in. So
yeah. And I guess obviously with the women, the fact is that both the women's world champions are part of the WarGames match.
Yeah.
On the same team actually, which I don't know, that's a first. Not too sure. One half of the women's tag champions, although there is some rumours about them stripped of the titles.
Yeah.
Which this is interesting. Because this is interesting because obviously they seem to do different things when there's injured champions, which kind of drives a lot of people crazy. And so a point that people brought up is obviously the Piper Niven and Chelsea Green situation that came about from, was it Sonya Deville being injured?
Yeah, and then Piper just took over, right?
Yeah, and then Chelsea had to find a new partner.
Yeah, I hate that.
That's what happened. Yeah. But now obviously they're saying that Bianca and Jay will have to be stripped of the belts. And previously they had, remember the time when Trish Stratus got injured when she was women's champion? They kept her with the belt. But there's been other times where the minute someone gets injured, like, yeah, right, stripped.
Yeah.
Off you go.
Poor old Mr. Kennedy lost his briefcase and then wasn't even that bad, it turns out.
Yeah. But some people aren't even out of the ring before they're like, we're stripped.
Like they couldn't wait. No, it's a strange one because as much as I don't like it, there's a ready-made partner for her to kind of be replaced by in Naomi, that she is part of that kind of threesome. They are kind of almost a stable, So
let's say trio.
Okay, maybe I shouldn't use that word. All right, but that's something interesting to talk about anyway. I touched on it a little bit before you did come on air, Lucas. But there's a lot of rumors flying around about why they've done this. First, we were hearing it's because she's legit injured. She's going to be out for a while. Then the rumors started to be she's injured for quite a while. She'll be gone past Mania, and now there's talk that it's all a work. She's not injured at all. So that kind of throws a spanner in the works when it comes to not only that storyline, but I think this match as well. Because if it is all a work, there's got to be some sort of progression in this match. If it's not a work, and again, before you came on there, I was likening it to the Stone Cold situation where they had him run over and they didn't even bother clearly to figure out who that would be until the time came, and then they decided on Rikishi. And we know that because Rikishi wasn't a prominent figure in late 1999 WWF. So it clearly was never meant to be the plan. So I feel like they kind of maybe if it's real, they're going to buy themselves some time. We all know Jade and Bianca is money, right? So surely they'll just go, all right, you're coming back. Now we'll amp it up and we'll go, actually, it was you. Kind of like they did with Rikishi. And maybe it'll be Naomi. Maybe it will be Bianca paid someone, and that's the swerve because she was in the ring. Kind of like the whole Triple H was on the scene, so it couldn't have been him in 99 as well. It weirdly really reminds me of Stone Cold getting run over, is what I'm saying.
So, the episode of Raw from last week was pre-recorded, wasn't it? I believe.
So
they have like a pre-recorded now. Whichever one the women all fought at, and they announced women's war games, the teams.
Oh yeah. When Rhea came out.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking,
that was pre-recorded. Yeah.
Yeah. What I'm thinking is that Jade was potentially, if it's real, that Jade was injured and they didn't have an idea of a timescale to come back. And so they decided to pull her from this match. And then either one or two things happened. Number one, the injury that was legit has got a worse diagnosis. So that's when they put out the rumours / statement. It's rumours, isn't it? No statement. The rumours that it is a long-way injury past WrestleMania, or the injury wasn't as severe as they thought, and they were like, well, let's keep this at work and work into a storyline. Those are the two options that I foresee happening with this, particularly that Raw being taped and them not having the time to kind of fix this since. There is that part of the reason, like there, that maybe there's still been kind of talks about them not being like fully impressed with Jade and how she's been progressing. Though I think she hasn't been doing very well. I do see there are times, and they might be thinking maybe they wanted a reason to get her out of this match because WarGames.
That would be weird though. Like I think that's, if that is true, it can't be that much of a big deal because she hasn't fumbled. Like she hasn't been terrible.
No,
like,
she hasn't.
And like it's not like, oh man, you can't be trusted in WarGames. I think if there's any match you can be trusted in, it's a match where there's loads of people to help you out.
Yeah, and obviously a match where they can completely just book her to do kind of just one or two
powerful stuff. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's always interesting when something like this happens, and I guess it's one of those where we're probably not going to find out until the show or after the show, because I feel if they do have to strip the belts, I believe that would be them confirming the injury is legitimate.
Yeah.
But like by default, I think if she's not really injured and she comes back afterwards, and what's the point? Like she comes back a week afterwards, like, well, what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, either way, whether, like you said, I think it might be like kind of what you were kind of theorizing there, where maybe it was an injury. They said to be safe, we'll pull you out of it. It's not as bad as we thought. So, they had to create a storyline around it anyway. And the one they're leaning into is that everybody suspects Bayley, and Bayley's come into it. And the typical thing of, I was the bad guy, I just snuck my way in. Like, that's what they're kind of leaning on. But I think, and this is kind of what I talked about my prediction as well, that Bayley needs to be, they're cautious of Bayley, they're quite suspicious, but she wins. She helps them win to prove, look, guys, it's not me. So that when it is revealed who it is, which I do think Naomi or Bianca, or at least Bianca having something to do with it because she's out in the ring when it got shown on TV. That I think that's the best way to go, and I think that it's to have this kind of mini swerve of everybody's focused on Bayley so that they can focus on who it really is. But again, whether or not that's revealed in a week's time, at Survivor Series, or in 9 months because Jade's gone for a while, I don't know, but I do think that's kind of where they're going with it. And I think if it's a real injury, or even if it was a small, it's smaller than they expected it to be, it's one of those scenarios where, just like with CM Punk and Seth Rollins, sometimes you just got to pull the trigger, and you just got to do it because we don't know these things of injury. And we talked about earlier on with Sheamus. I kind of feel like he needs to just win it whenever he can do it now, because you never know what's going to happen in the future. I mean, that's another thing I think quite interesting to talk about when it comes to the men's WarGames match. I mean, there's loads of possible scenarios here as far as, someone turning on someone else. But the big one I think that everybody's talking about at the moment is, of course, CM Punk potentially turning, Paul Heyman being the reason, and the two of them kind of break away. But I also think that it's an interesting possibility that it could be a red herring to disguise what felt kind of obvious but doesn't anymore, which is a Sami Zayn turn. Because I felt like Sami Zayn looked like he might turn on the OG bloodline, and that maybe Punk is actually here to, again, be a red herring, so that if Sami does turn, because nobody's thinking about Sami Zayn now, it's all about CM Punk. Do you think it could possibly be that, or do you think Punk's turning, or what? Are we getting any sort of turn in this?
No, I think that nothing's happening.
Really? Nothing at all?
I think if something does happen, it will just be involving the bloodline members. Like, I think it will be like, I mean, the shock here is either Roman getting pinned, or like even Roman turning. That would be more likely, I think.
What, going to the new bloodline?
I don't know.
It could be, because he's like, you know what? I dropped all you guys in the first place for a reason. He was setting up.
Why did come out before?
Yeah, I mean, that was weird.
It's so messy. But no, yeah, I don't know. I don't think it will be anything. I don't think anything will happen. I think they are probably they're red herrings that are both counting each other out, in my opinion. I think the Sami Zayn thing is obvious until CM Punk's now obvious, because basically
and maybe it is The Rock. Maybe it is something with The Rock, because like I said, I think it was bad blood. It feels wasted now. Like, why did we do that then? It kind of took away from Jimmy's one as well. So yeah,
I mean, yeah, I think that they will set up Punk versus probably Solo Sikoa or another one of them for the debut Raw episode, is what I'm thinking.
Okay, yeah, I can kind of see that. Sludge says Sammy stays, by the way, with the better bloodline. Okay, so the OGs. The OGs, come on now.
Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah, I think that'll be what the direction they go, because obviously I think they have announced obviously certain people for it, but they haven't. But I can't. Not everyone. Not obviously one of those. Not where everyone's not going to have a match, obviously. But I could think maybe a Punk versus Solo might be something they want to do.
Yeah, or even Jacob
brands as well, aren't they? At the moment, Punk's obviously on Raw, and Solo's on SmackDown. So I think it might just be putting Punk in there with the Bloodline, so he can then have a feud and
to
a match
bring someone over.
Yeah. Because it is obviously coming up very, very quickly. Yeah. We're within 5 weeks. And it is like, I truly believe this is the biggest thing that's happened in the company history in terms of television. And in terms of the UK thing, it's crazy. It is crazy. Like, obviously, if you're watching this from obviously America or Canada or anywhere where you can watch these shows at a normal time in the evening, you have no idea how much we've struggled. Like, Raw over here used to be on Friday evenings. SmackDown,
taped,
on, like, Saturday nights or Saturday mornings or Sunday.
Saturday morning Sky One, mate. What a way to wake up. I used to love it.
Until they then moved to Sky Sports.
We
used to obviously get the pay-per-views, and back in the day when it was pay-per-view, it came on pay-per-view. You watched it when it was on, and then it got repeats maybe 2 or 3 times the next day, and that was it. And you had to try and time it so you could watch it at the time.
Mate, we are sounded so old.
I know. Even to think more recently with the network, that was a big deal. But ending 10 years, of the network, but is it coming to an end? And it is going on, probably like the most. I think Disney Plus has overtaken in terms of subscribers, I think. But Netflix is still, as far as a lot of people are concerned, it is like the streaming service. When you think about streaming service, you think of Netflix. Yeah. And it's going on there. And, I've seen it on my Netflix page, as in the coming soon section. There are the WWE superstars, John Cena, CM Punk, Roman Reigns, like front and center. And it is bonkers to think that's the direction we're heading in. And obviously over here in the UK, we are getting obviously all the television shows, Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, and selected historical pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Which is
scary words, but let's hope we get a good collection, because like you say, the network, and I was talking with Tom the other day, of course, co-host for Talking Beans, and been on this channel a few times as well, and we were talking about the Netflix deal and saying, like, we just hope we get enough out of it, because it's a massive thing for casual fans. Do you imagine what it's like? There will be people going, I used to like The Rock. I used to like John Cena, or whoever it is from whatever era you're from. And people will. It's so much easier because you're paying for it anyway. It's great for fans because, like you say, most people have Netflix anyway, right? So like, you're saving a tenner on a Netflix on the network now. So, but it is a shame because the network was so groundbreaking. I remember when it first came out. I signed up to, it wasn't out in the UK yet, and there are ways around these things, and I paid $9.99 to give a hint to what I was doing. And I had that for a bit, and then it came to the UK. I paid £9.99, and I've also dabbled in a bit of Peacock here and there as well, which is actually made me realize that Netflix is probably going to be run the same way as on Peacock, where you have a button of WWE. Because could you imagine if you're scrolling through and it's like Making a Murderer, the Menendez brothers, the Addams Family, Home Alone, Raw from February 1998. You're like, well, what is that doing there? It just, Halloween Havoc. You'd be like, what? World Class Championship Wrestling, the Von Erichs versus the Freebirds. It will look a little out of place in the main section.
Yeah,
so
I think it's
got to have its own tab.
I mean, obviously, Netflix, obviously, it's also, isn't it also going to be the home of a lot of women's football, isn't it? It's signed the women's football leagues from throughout the world. And it is bonkers, I think, it probably needs a deeper dive than what we're discussing now, but it's bonkers to think that obviously Netflix, notoriously known for originally being a DVD company and then moving into streaming, is now going back to live television, as a core selling point.
Yeah.
For me, it's a perfect time to, is that in regards to...
I guess going to Netflix, yeah.
I mean...
The future, that's feel like the future, man. I mean, it's so weird. Saying Links to the Future felt more of a thing 10 years ago, don't get me wrong. But like you say, they're moving into a different model themselves, and WWE are getting on board as the first major test in this. All right, we saw the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight be the actual first test, but this is the first test for like an actual deal, like a product that is moving forward. It's incredible. Like they've on both sides of the part, both parties here. It's amazing, this deal for both sides, and it literally is a win-win for Netflix, for WWE, and win-win-win for us fans as well. I think it's a great move.
Yeah, it is. I think it's just nice having everything on one service as well over here in the UK. One affordable service. Sorry, no one had to BT Sports full price like what TNT Sports what became, and I think ultimately, we will win, and I think. I've always said I maintain belief that the reason why the first All In did so well, or one of the reasons why, along with it just being wrestling at Wembley, it being the first kind of time AEW came over, all that curiosity kind of stuff. I think a big part of it is the fact that AEW over here is shown on ITV.
Accessibility is huge, man.
It's on ITVX. It is our biggest commercial broadcaster over here. Our second biggest channel by audience share after the BBC, and it's accessible. It's not behind a paywall. Fair enough, you've got to watch 1,000 adverts before you watch anything on ITVX, but it is accessible to everyone. Everyone can watch it. So whether it was someone who grew up watching Big Daddy and Giant Haystacks, all those years ago, or whether it's a modern day fan who liked the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega and stuff, it was accessible to everyone. At literally the point of just turning on television and it would be on. Whereas WWE, sadly, I think by signing that BT Sports / TNT Sports deal in 2019, I want to say 2019. It was a big blow to them over here in terms of audience, viewership. The buzz that was before, and when you ask people, have you watched Raw, watch this, there's not as many people now over here that can say that because, WWE, sadly, they signed that deal that put them behind that paywall that people just wouldn't pay unless you were already, obviously, as sports, if you're into the sports fan, if you might, but a lot of people just didn't have it. I think now this, like you say, it will bring a lot of the casual fans back, and even some of the more kind of diehardy ones, because us Brits don't like stuff behind a paywall. I best be dead honest. We're very much, we sit the free stuff. And I think this will be a big deal. And obviously, on the channel, we're going to hope to give some more content. Obviously, as it comes up to this Netflix Raw, Saturday Night's main event as well, and obviously the Rumble, the February Rumble, the first ever time. The Rumble
feels weird.
Place not in January, but it does make sense. It's not that they moved it mid-February. It's just the fact that that Sunday is the first day of February, which is annoying.
Technically speaking, it's in February, so therefore it feels weird. Even when it's January the 30th, which, like you say, is mere hours away in some sense, it still feels but it's Rumble. It goes to January, right? So it is a little odd. But like you say, we've got big things to kind of take us there, man, and bridge that gap with not only Saturday night's main event being the kind of placeholder now for the December PLE, because there hasn't been one for a while anyway. Day one got turned into a special on Raw, didn't it, last year, where The Rock came back, and this feels a little bit like that as well, as far as that time period as well. So it'll be interesting.
We'll be doing a deeper dive, hopefully on the channel very soon. I don't know if people see my Survivor Series one, but about the kind of trouble that they've had. There we are. Give that a watch when you can. That's obviously me talking about Survivor Series, traditional Survivor Series matches, which obviously I was hoping that there would be one on this event, but doesn't seem to be. Unless they don't want to do a last minute call to throw on the pre-show. I doubt.
I mean, look, we're sidetracking a little bit here, but the White Six versus Carry On Cross's crew. Why didn't they? Anyway, that's that would have been great. But anyway, go on, carry on.
Best of both worlds. Best of both worlds.
Yeah.
That's why I said my video. I think the main thing is, if you don't want to completely abandon the War Games, give people the best of both worlds, put a traditional one on, and then put a War Games one on.
Yeah.
That way, you're getting both the gimmicks over, because genuinely, they are such an entertaining concept that we are now missing out on because of War Games. And I don't know why you wouldn't want to do both. Like, they're, you know, it's
You
like
can,
saying
yeah,
you're
you can
only going to do steel cage matches, not Hell in a Cell anymore. You know, they're both can be entertaining matches when used right, to really, you know, have an impact on a feud. And, you know, by getting rid of one to save the other, you're limiting your stuff. But anyway, December pay-per-views, they've always been very problematic for the company. You know, like going back, you know, way back, and even ones that we think are big. You know, Vengeance, almost basically Vengeance 2001, where Chris Jericho won. You know, as we know, beat The Rock and Stone Cold, Steve Austin on the same night. You know, we know this from thing. It was a flop. You know, it was seen as a flop, and they had to move that event around like a lot of times. They moved to June. They branded it with Night of Champion. They tried everything they could do with it. And obviously, we know the most famous one that obviously flopped in December was the ECW, December to Dismember, which I think is still the lowest bought WWE brand. It was a WWE branded event. Everyone, even though it was under their WWE ECW brand, it was a WWE pay-per-view event, and it was, I think, it was the lowest bought event. Only had 2 matches being advertised going into it, and even they changed. And then everything else was just stuff thrown on.
They're almost set up to fail, and you know, the ECW return is a kind of a touchy subject in a few ways for that reason.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to Saturday Night's Main Event. I mean, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how they do it this time, because obviously it's been a long time since we last had one.
Well, the current reports are that they're going old school with it, like the old Raw old school events they did. So apparently, there's rumors people like Jimmy Hart's going to be involved. Apparently, they're going to have old school setups, like not just from graphics and design, but also I think even the way they set up the arena is going to have like an old kind of feel to it as well. So yeah, really looking forward to it. And as you say, we're going to be covering that in depth on this channel. Thankfully, we've got something big to talk about in December. Even if we don't have a proper PLE, it's going to be fun to talk about that, and it's something different, right? And then again, this big show when it comes to early January and Raw going to Netflix as well. Going back to Survivor Series, though, when it comes to the men's War Games, as I say, the big kind of possible talking points here that a lot of people are seeing as likely scenarios is maybe a CM Punk / Paul Heyman heel turn, or maybe a Sami Zayn heel turn as well. You're saying you don't see either of those things happening, but what is I know you've kind of touched on already what you might think, it could be, but looking at it right now, at the end of Survivor Series, let's say it's the last match, what's the defining moment coming out of that match? What's the story going forward?
So I'm assuming that they will have to start accelerating the build to what the Bloodline will be doing on the first episode of Raw. So I'm anticipating that Punk is heavily involved in the finishing sequence, alongside Heyman, alongside Solo Sikoa. They could even set like a tag team match, maybe actually, like Solo and one of them against Punk and Reigns down the line. There's a lot that could, but I think ultimately I think they are setting up the first episode of Raw on Netflix via this match. And yes, I guess they could do this from a turn of someone who would then have the match on that show. But I think the defining moment for me is that, personally, and I think that's enough for them to coast without having to worry about a turn. But I wouldn't be surprised, particularly with how Triple H has booked this stuff, and with War Games, like I've said several times, being quite messy, a match, I wouldn't be surprised if they do throw a turn in there, to try to, excite people even more. But I think a better time for a turn though would be that Saturday night's main event, because I think the problem I have with anything that happens in these massive kind of matches is that the match is so massive and so messy as it is. You then add on like a turn, like people are still kind of digesting, because as we know with War Games, basically how WWE do them. We know we're going to see tables, we're going to see chairs, we're going to see dives off the all that kind of stuff. And then you throw a turn in there as well, which just people are still digesting all that other stuff that's just happened. Because
Yeah.
again, these are 40-minute matches. You know, then you know it's not like a Raw TV match. It's 40 minutes of 10 guys.
A lot of layers to it as well, and like I say, big spots. So
and I think the only time I guess you could do a turn is I guess the direct finish, or kind of after the match is over.
Yeah.
Potentially after the match is over could be a good one, because something I really liked. I really liked Kevin Owens' turn from in NXT about 10 years ago. Now he turned on Sami Zayn, because that.
Oh yeah, the powerbomb on the apron.
To this day, only when I see the WWE logo or first network advert come on, that's when I turn the pay-per-view off. Because I remember before I wished to go by in the corner, this insignia.
It was so good when they did that.
It was so good, because I think it was maybe the first time they ever did it.
I think it was.
The logo on the bottom, and that always meant the show was over. The next thing you're going to see is the WWE logo or whatever, or the screen goes black and then it cuts the. But that was the first occasion they did it, where that logo came on, and then the turn happened, and then the reaction happened, and then the pay-per-view ended. So that could be a good one to do.
I mean, to be fair though, they did do it last year with CM Punk's return. They did the same thing. They put the logo up. So
first time they did it.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. But if they did it this year, it'd be too much a reminder of they did this last year, because they are few and far between. That first time was so exciting because you say we've never seen it before. Last year, it was like we've seen it before, but still that was a great way to do it. To do it again this year, and I think they've got a lot to live up to because of last year. Because last year, like you say, WarGames is such a layered match. And again, I was watching that stream that they run on YouTube, and it showed that match. And I was rewatching it last night, and then I completely forgot just like how over. I mean, I didn't forget, but like it brought it to the forefront, I guess, how over Judgment Day were, how cool they were, and how Rhea attempts to cash in, and then Randy Orton comes back, which was incredible on its own. Some really good feel-good stuff. You're playing off of the stuff between Cody and the Legacy. Then they throw JD off the top for an amazing RKO, which I completely forgot about. And then at the end of it, CM Punk comes back, and you're thinking this is one of the greatest returns of all time. I don't want to dive too much into that return just here, because I was dissecting it a little bit differently the other day as I did a year ago. I still think it's fantastic, don't get me wrong. But like, it is something I'd love to jump into further another time, and I don't want to hijack this stream for an hour talking about Punk. But what I'm getting at essentially is, before, without digging into it too much, there is a lot to live up to comparing to the end of last year's one, and even a year before. Again, I know you're not the biggest fan of the WarGames concept, and you believe that it should be separate to Survivor Series, and I do agree with you in some aspects there. But they've still had some really cool moments. And even a year before, that whole story arc of Sami Zayn finally being like, oh, now you trust me. Now you get it. I'm with you guys. Which is why a lot of people start to feel that he could turn this year, because it's in the WarGames again and all that. So that's what's leading me to think there's got to be something, right? Even if it's not a turn, maybe The Rock does come back. He's synonymous with Survivor Series as well. So I feel like fans will feel that like we've been built up too high, is what I'm saying, The
thing is, I think The Rock coming back, was it last month, whenever it was, I think it's kind of ruined him coming back again. Like,
it should have been here,
because why, he came back and he just stood there, and there was I think they didn't even mention it a few days later. And then, you could argue some of this stuff's been done to like pop the live crowd that are there, but then don't put it on the pay-per-view then. But then I guess if you don't put it on pay-per-view, people
going to get out in it,
But, yeah, I feel that would be... I mean, The Rock coming back could be it. I mean, for me, I feel that would be a little bit flat, unless... The only thing is, if The Rock does come back, I want it to directly... I want it to directly kind of tell me which way it's going. Which I get that some people would say, well, no, you can't have it all. But I think in terms of this, like, yes, I can. Like, because we should be. Because with respect, The Rock had his match at Mania, did a weird promo with Cody the next night where he raised that belt and said, I'm coming for your one, and let me hold it, and blah, blah. Yeah. And then he came back, what was it, a Bad Blood or whatever it was. At the end.
Just looked at
the ring. It's like, well, can we at least get him, like, at the apron? Like, can he maybe, like, come and, like, wave at the commentators maybe or something? Yeah. Like,
give us an idea why you're there, mate.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, even if it is, he comes in and has a stare down with Roman Reigns or CM Punk or any other bloodlines or whatever it's going to be. Though another moment that just popped into my head is obviously we're talking about turns in this match. Now we're talking about return or a return. What if there's 2 returns?
Go on.
Because Paul Heyman's involved.
Mm.
And remember, there's that whole thing about how wrong number and all this kind of stuff. And
we haven't even talked about that, have we? The wrong number and
connected.
Yeah.
And obviously now Punk's involved, but we have to remember there is a certain client of Paul Heyman's that has not been around these shores for a long time,
right?
And links to the bloodline and with everyone in it. What if it is the shock return of The Rock happens, but then who was to come out? While The Rock's deciding who he's going to maybe like point or look at, but who comes out? But the reigning, defending.
Well, not so reigning and defending anymore, but I get where you go with it. Yeah, I mean, look, Brock Lesnar is going to come back at some point, right? There's a lot of kind of behind the scenes stuff that might make things a little messy, but it's interesting you bring this up because I don't know if you've seen, but he was asked this the other day, Paul Heyman, and obviously people have jumped on the story because they've been like, well, there you are, that's it. But we all know what kind of person Paul Heyman is, right? He will string us along as best as he can, right? So apparently he said, he was talking to, apparently, let me just want to get this right, Shaq Wrestling. I think so, it's been attributed to them. So whether or not he's spoken to Lesnar recently, so when it comes to Brock Lesnar, Lesnar doesn't like to be discussed about about anything about his that's off camera. So if I do speak Brock Lesnar, he would want that to be private. If I don't speak with Brock Lesnar, he would want that to be private. Number one, I would never want to violate his privacy. Number two, I fear for a human being that would want to violate privacy desired by Brock Lesnar. Both yada yada yada. Essentially, now the big part that he's talking about is WWE. He said, I don't really want to put any thought into that at this time because it's not a subject that's going to resolve itself by Survivor Series or by the end of the year. Therefore, it's just not on the radar of things to address today. Now, that does feel like he's kind of maybe throwing us off the scent because it some ways feels realistic because you're like, you can imagine this is a contract situation. He's a big figure. I mean, look what the drama around him coming back that time he first did come back, right, to beat up John Cena at that time after WrestleMania. It was a big deal. But then also there's stuff that, you know, who knows what the truth is, but some headlines that have been out, you know, that they might have to resolve as well, whether true or not. But then at the same time, what he said there, and he's always like this, Paul Heyman, is very character of him, you know, like he would always say like contract, you know, he'd always talk about like, it's such a big deal. It's hard to get him. It's hard to get Brock Lesnar.
I mean, people have to Paul Heyman's gimmick or character is meant to be the sports agent that he's. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of how he's answered, right? Which makes me think, oh, that's the storyline. He's coming back. You know.
I mean, I sit in the camp that Brock Lesnar is definitely coming back to the company at some point. It's just a case of when. And I think that yes, there'd be some complications because of the recent allegations and the situation with that. But I do think that the fact that they mentioned him on television recently
says something, doesn't it?
You know, the steps they took to kind of remove him from the company, they're slowly kind of backpedaling on. And the fact that obviously WWE is now affiliated with UFC, which, if anything, speaks more because I think, you know, he could go back to one or the other in any capacity, you could argue. I don't think he'll fight in UFC again, but I think, you know, if they want him as an analyst or they want him as, you know, come out as a corner person or whatever, you know, he'll glad to take the check for that. You know, I'm sure it'll be a big check. And same wise in WWE, like there's stuff there that he can do. And so I think, you know, people have spoken about this with Brock, you know, everyone seems to like not know Brock really. And I think it's a case of he'll be back at the time that he feels is best for him to come back. Yeah. I think that's literally it. I think, and, you know, there probably is some bad blood between him and the company. Because again, without us delving into obviously the allegation and stuff, like I think, you know, if a company has decided to put you on hiatus because of those things, you may not be willing to kind of jump at the opportunity to come back.
You got to remember as well, before all this stuff came out, when Vince got removed, there was the reports going around that Brock was losing his mind, essentially, you know, and really unhappy about it. So,
well, yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, as Vince was ultimately the guy who produced Brock. Like, you know, you can say one about other people, but I think Vince was the reason why Brock came back to the company. You know, he's the reason why Brock got the push and the character he got. That whole Suplex City 21-1, it was all Vince's booking and things that got him there. And don't get me wrong, it was a shaky start at first when he lost Cena at that weird occasion, just because the political stuff that's going on at the time dictated that they wanted Cena to win. And the arc that Cena was on following, obviously, he's lost to The Rock. Mania, they decided that's what they wanted. But yeah, like I do think Brock Lesnar will be on his way back to the company. And it's just you know what I love now actually about this is the fact that we're talking about Survivor Series, like the second longest tenured pay-per-view in WWE history after WrestleMania, of course, and the last play of the year, like a nice big one to kind of end the year on. But we've still got like so many big things to come in this new WWE, like, and then that's even before we get to the Rumble. Like we've touched upon Saturday Night Main Event, we've got, and of course the Netflix debut on Raw, and we've got all these moments where you kind of think, you know, someone like a Brock Lesnar, like,
that needs a moment. That needs a moment. Yeah.
Or we could come back at
and then you've got the Rumble, you know.
You can go back at the Rumble.
Even Punk last year, people were like, oh, if he does come back, it'll be at the Rumble. And then people were shocked when it was Survivor Series. I mean, the Chicago link was there, don't get me wrong, but people were like, really? Not the Rumble? So, like you say, this time of year is usually exciting when it comes to that stuff. But at the moment, even more so, because I have faith in WWE that they will deliver on all of these shows. You know, they will give us something on all of these shows. I mean, it might vary in how big the surprise or the turn or the return is, but I think we will get something. I'm confident in that.
I think Saturday Night's Main Event will be, I don't think it will be like a blockbuster card, but I think it will just be a nice kind of way to end the year, personally. I think I'm glad you said about the kind of old school feel it's going to apparently have. I think that'll be the right way for me, I think, to get that nostalgia kind of back. Yeah. Particularly because, obviously, like for me, it's kind of been removed from Survivor Series because of WarGames, and so it'd be nice to have an event which, you know, is a bit traditional. And it'd be nice to have, I don't know, like if they want to do like a fun gimmick match, you know, like, you know, something on a pole, or like one of the kind of old...
mate, a blue steel cage match.
Yeah,
that would be cool.
Just something, you know, and maybe again, if they want to feature some of the mid card acts, maybe this might be where this White Six and mid stuff might be leading to. Yeah, because that's another thing in Triple H WWE at the moment. We're getting the fact that things are happening behind all the main stuff, and it's going to come to fruition elsewhere. Like the whole Bronson Reed Braun Strowman thing never touched a PLE. The whole year,
bizarre, isn't it? Yeah, you know, and it was a great feud. That
match, oh God, a phenomenal match. I love that match so much. That they had all on Raw.
That's actually reminded me of one last thing to touch on about the men's War Games. Because of Bronson Reed being in this match, a lot of people, of course, thought Seth Rollins would be on the opposite side, right? And of course, it wasn't to be. It's CM Punk. But that also could lead to Seth Rollins still being involved, because he could come after CM Punk in this match. Seth could be going into that feud as a heel. Or is it, like I say, Punk turning heel, going against Roman, and therefore Seth? Or is Seth getting annoyed with Roman for teaming up with, you know, look how he treated us when he brought us into WWE. He thought he was the ruler of the Shield, and we ditched him as quick as we could. Why are you letting him be with you again?
To be fair, that would be, for me, the better option than CM Punk turning. I think if Rollins wants to cost Punk the match, or at least Punk being in the match potentially, something like that could work. And I think keeping Seth and Bronson apart is the best thing to do. Let Bronson work with new people. I think I'm going to make a bold prediction for something.
Go on.
I genuinely believe that if they can keep Bronson's momentum going the way it's going, I think the guy's going to be a big player in the company within like a year or two. I think he's going to be one of those where he's just so damn good at what he does. I just think if they can just keep that momentum going, and obviously the company's sadly notoriously been bad for some of these kind of guys. You look at a long list of guys who at one point were dealt the same cards as Bronson Reed, and then one by one have fallen by the wayside. But I think, I think they're onto something with Bronson big time, like big time.
Look, I agree, man. I think when they let him go and it didn't quite work out that first time round, it felt like the same old story of, like you say, he's the new big guy. We're going to push him. Didn't work, and that was at a kind of a lower level, of course, because it was on NXT, where he kind of had his most kind of, I guess, shine really. And I'm saying this last month. It must have been on either the kickoff show for what was the last PLE? Crown Jewel, or earliest month, I should say, kickoff, or it might have been on the build-up. I was saying, look, I like what they've done with Bronson Reed later. I think he's been fantastic, and it does feel different to those other big men storylines they've done. Like you can name them all. Like going back to Snitsky and Mike Knox, like it is like they've done this so many times, but this one feels different. Like the presentation feels different. He just like. You mentioned there the Bronson Reed storyline, the Seth Rollins storyline, and just they were highlights from Raw, yet they weren't even on PLEs, like you say. Yeah. Like the alone, like the car spot was incredible, right? Yeah. And the bit where he threw was it a fan or was it a cameraman or something like that into Raw? And like there's so many great. The presentation of Bronson Reed it's not your typical he's the big man and you should fear him. Like they've made him so much more believable, like he's not Great Khali. He's not Snitsky. He's not, whatever name we want to fill into this gap, it feels very refreshing.
And the thing is, I think why it's working is they kind of gone back to the old ways of doing things as well. Like, and I think the storytelling of obviously when he does like the tsunami and all the kind of stuff around that has just been perfect. Like I think the way the baby faces, basically fear that move. Like fear that move, and obviously show my age here, though I wasn't alive to watch it live, but obviously I'm not that old.
Little asterisk.
When Earthquake, when he broke Hulk Hogan's ribs with the Earthquake splash, and that was one of those where one of those little moments where you think maybe is this real? Like what I mean? Like, and I think Bronson Reed has that where he's finished, where people are like, like it's like we did it on our truth like time and time again. Like
when they're trying to pull him back from doing it, Like...
So I do find it comical though because they all like gather around the person trying to protect. They see him up top row and they go, "Oh no,
nope." Well, I tried to save you, but I couldn't. I'm sorry, I'm gone now.
Especially when he does like 5 or 6 times.
But even that adds to it. Like you said, the genuine fear. It was like, I don't want to be near this. Like, it's so devastating. I have to try and help you out of it. But at some point, it's like in a horror movie or something like that. Something's coming down on something. You try and put them away, but if you can't do it, you're going to get chopped as well. So you best just leave them there in the end if it's getting too close. So, man, I agree. I think the presentation of Bronson Reed's been fantastic.
And I think this is a good match to showcase him in. It is an interesting one where obviously this is the thing. Like, is this not a red herring? Because this is the problem with WarGames. Actually, it makes you think everything's a red herring. But you know what I mean? Like, because obviously the Bloodline feud obviously is the kind of main selling point of this match, as is obviously CM Punk. Will he? Won't he turn? And even Sami Zayn stuff is linked to the Bloodline anyway. But Bronson Reed obviously is like the kind of unknown entity in this. Like, is he be that demolition guy? The thing is with WarGames matches, I guess what they have to bear in mind is that you need all the different kind of people to make it work. And obviously Bronson Reed's that big guy, so you have to imagine they're going to be setting up some sort of big spot that he would do, where he may put a couple people through a table, or they're going to do a cage breaking. Because a cage break could be good, because that way that's an easy way to get Rollins involved as well.
I just recently rewatched Rikishi jumping off the cage, and for a split second there, I thought, is Bronson Reed going to jump off the cage?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
A tsunami off the cage would be devastating. Like,
oh my god!
I'm scared.
I can see that happening to the Usos.
So can I. Yeah,
I can see that being 1,000 super kicks they do as normal.
Yeah. He won't go down. He
still won't go down about 1,000.
Yeah.
Then they eventually do get him down. They go for the splash together. They miss. He then does the was it Death Ray Drive he does, isn't it? Whatever he does to get to get people down that move. Then he puts them up. He puts them on the table. He climbs up the cage, does the slam and both of them through the table or something.
I mean, I like the idea of them missing. Them even referring to Rikishi haven't done it. Him doing whatever, or even if it's not on a table, just imagine him dragging their limp bodies together next to each other, and then as he jumps off. Oh man, I'm fantasy booking this. Like,
to be fair, as much as obviously I'm not a massive fan of WarGames, I do think that the men's match this year probably could be one of the best ones they do. I think that it's got a lot of the correct ingredients needed, and it actually deserves the WarGames moniker.
Yeah,
the WarGames to it. I think that less of the women's match. I just feel particularly with the whole Jay Cargill thing, it is just showing that it could have just been a 4-on-4 really, because you don't have the fifth person really.
Yeah,
if you're willing to just swap that person out like that, like it shows that it didn't really matter who was. And I do feel that having two, it's just a bit of overkill. And I feel this also about the chamber as well. Like I think because the matches there's very long matches, and unless they want to shorten the time or something, like isn't it like every 5 minutes or something? It's quite a long match to go through, and it's just very messy. But I think the men's one this year did a very good job of it, and it's a case of now, and I do think it will deliver. As a WarGames thing, and I'm 50-50 on this because I'm thinking if it is just a very good match, this is where I'm probably going to show my kind of bias against the match. If it's just a very good match, don't we just leave it there? Just be like, okay, we did the WarGames thing for like 3 years.
The last one ever.
We ended on a good one, but or last one ever. Anyway, they decide, okay, it's good. But it's kind of needs to be its own thing, and let's just move it to another time.
Yeah.
And then we have a Survivor Series in November as normal. Because even if you want to turn that into the December pay-per-view, or I don't know. Yeah. It is kind of hard to think where to put it, though, I guess, is a problem.
No, look, I'm with you, man. I think, and not to go into it too much because I don't want to take away from your video. And again, if those haven't seen it already, go check it out on this channel. Lucas's hot take talking about why he thinks WarGames does need to be detached from Survivor Series. And there are quite a few points he went into. And again, some I agree with, some I disagree with, or varying levels, but I am with you in the sense that it shouldn't be on Survivor Series. It should be separate. I get why they did it, and I get why the temptation comes from for him. But like you say, it's at the expense of something that was a good tradition anyway. But I also think that was crap at times. There were years ago when they were thinking about getting rid of Survivor Series, weren't they? And I was always against it, even though at the time I wasn't even enjoying Survivor Series, but I didn't want to get rid of it. My answer was, well, just fix it and it'll be okay. And that's what they can do.
I think they did for certain years. I think sometimes, I mean, we've seen this happen, I think, since obviously the allegation came out regarding Vince, but I think there is that kind of brush that people have tarred all his stuff under, all the ideas basically since he actually have been rubbish. I mean, it's not true. It isn't true. Like, I'm sorry, like it isn't. Like, some of the best stuff that Vince has done has been like this side of the millennium, like clearly. Like the shit, like stuff, and stuff. Some stuff you could say, it wasn't fully him or other people, blah blah. But still, like the Shield, like
exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think it was even before the allegations, and even before he left, it was very easy for people to just go, "Ugh, Vince," and it's like you have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. You don't know if this is a Vince idea or not.
Look, for every Shield being formed, the Shield turn, there is the last.
Yep. There are some crazy stories about things he should have done or shouldn't have done in the past. Don't be wrong, but you're right. You can't pretend that he was irrelevant almost. He was a senile old man who did nothing good creatively for the last X amount of years, because he did. And there were loads of good things there. I mean, Triple H has got a different approach, and that's why it feels so fresh at the moment. And we've got a great preview of that from his time running NXT. I mean, he brought WarGames to NXT, and he made it its own PLE. I mean, I don't know if it should be its own PLE, because again, it gets us to that whole kind of TLC, Fatal 4-Way, Hell in a Cell, Elimination Chamber. I don't like that either. But why can't it just be every now and then go, this deserves a WarGames feud? Like it used to be with Hell in a Cell and those other big matches anyway. So
I mean, the thing is, like, if you look back, WCW, they did have it at the Full Brawl event, which I guess is why maybe Triple H is thinking put it then. But yeah, I don't know. I think they did fix it again. Halfway through watching the 2016 Men's Survivor Series. A little fun fact for people, actually. The 2016 Survivor Series has the longest and shortest matches in Survivor Series history, and they are back to back. The men's Survivor Series match is a whopping 52 minutes long.
Whew.
Of course,
I thought the WarGames was long.
And of course, the main event being Brock Lesnar and Goldberg was 1 minute and 28 seconds. But yeah, 52. A brilliant match though. It's the match where Sheamus.
Which one? The 1 minute match or the 52-minute match?
Both of them, to be fair. Both of them. But it must be funny, like having to follow a 52-minute match and knowing you're only like a minute and a half.
Yeah.
I think they achieved more in that minute and a half though than a lot of people can in like 10 times that. That 1 minute and 30 seconds. That set up kind of everything we needed for both men for at least 5 years or so, really. And
at 1 minute 30.
Yeah, I mean, it all started with that because that was what made us realize, oh crap, like Lesnar can be defeated. He can be defeated. And there is like a bigger kind of boss than him. Then with Goldberg, it showed that okay, we're actually going to book Goldberg proper this time. We're not going to have him do like 10-minute pay-per-view matches. We're going to have him to go, okay, this is the Goldberg we want. And then obviously, fair enough, they went that well far too many times, and Vince milked it dry a bit. But there were some good times there, with Goldberg for a little bit. But yeah, no, I think, sorry. But in terms of this whole thing, though, I do think there was that fix there. But I think the problem with WWE, and this might come to fruition with Triple H if he's not careful, is that they see something works and they just do it over and over and over and over again until it doesn't work. And they wonder why it doesn't work. But it's like, because you're doing the same thing and you're not like willing to budge on it. Like, I personally think the Raw vs. SmackDown stuff, some of it was good. Like 2016, very, very good. Like, very, very good.
Yeah, look, I always had a massive issue with the Raw vs. SmackDown stuff because it was booked badly. Not because it was a bad idea, but because it was booked badly. And again, you kind of touched on it on your video as well about kind of having a draft be the issue because it was too close. They suddenly went, I like to wear red t-shirts and you are my friend. Like, shut up. Like, it was rubbish. But when it worked, it worked well, but even now, I think I had a feeling that Raw versus SmackDown could be a separate, remember they did bragging rights. That was that was separate to Survivor Series. And then also they did the same thing with Night of Champions / Clash of Champions and then throwing out on different PLEs as well. Like there's still things that need to be refined. I mean, the PLE calendar is a lot better than it once was. And even the draft has been treated better this time around as well. But it's going to take a few more years, I think, for some of these things to be ironed out. And it's kind of like when a new manager goes to a football team and until he gets his own players in, he has a few transfer windows under his belt and he starts to play his own formations to players that can play that, then you really start to see what's going on. And Triple H is still only young in the job.
Case of, like, it is very much, seems like it's very much Triple H's baby in WWE. Like, I think, a lot of people have spoken about that. Vince never touched it as it was like the WCW match. It was seen as a WCW wrestling match. And, it was just such an anti-Vince thing to kind of bring in. And there's rumours about, it's mental thing how rumours are so positively true and then they just faff into nothing. But remember when Sting was rumoured to sign for Mania, I forget which one now.
Is this the 2/21/11? The returning when they thought he was coming back, it was Undertaker.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah,
how could I forget?
Around that time, talks about Sting coming into the company, and then but then also bringing in the WarGames concept to WWE around the same kind of time, and it was one of those locked in, definitely happening rumors. And as we know, neither of those came to fruition because it wouldn't be until 2018 when we got a WarGames match, and it wouldn't be obviously until 2014 when Sting made his debut at the company at
Survivor Series. There we go.
And both things didn't happen. So I think it was always that kind of match that it felt that Vince wouldn't book.
Yeah.
And I guess it has created the kind of thing where it's now associated with Triple H, which may be why he likes it.
Yeah.
On the flip side, though, I think that a very interesting concept, because obviously it was this is something that was taken away from the NXT brand. But I think in the thing, I think personally they came up with a blinder with Iron Survivor. I think Iron Survivor is really, really good.
You know what? I'm gonna really look bad for admitting this. I haven't watched any of them.
Oh, you need to.
And I've heard so many good things.
You need to.
I feel so embarrassed. I feel so ashamed. But yeah.
obviously NXT is on, I think, next week or the week after. Can't remember which one it is.
Yeah.
But I think, obviously the good thing is with this, unlike trying to rewatch Survivor Series, it won't take you about a month.
Yeah, true.
Survivor Series matches, it would only take you maybe a couple of hours. But I think it's a very good concept. It's a very good way of getting the Iron Man in the kind of gauntlet. Eliminate, it's not got elimination to it, but it has in a way. You've got the penalty box, but it's very well done by NXT. I feel it's very well done and very well utilized. And NXT, I think, are always very good with doing this. They give you like multiple chances to get title shots and stuff, and I think it creates a very open field. And I guess they can do that because obviously they've only got 5 belts, isn't it? Main US, women's US, and tag, or 4 then.
Oh, you mean North American?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
North American.
Well, it's close enough anyway.
It's weird though that the NXT belt is simply bigger than the US belt.
Yeah, geographically speaking, yeah.
But yeah, okay, they've only got 4 belts, but it creates, for me, I like these matches where it creates all these different options to win that aren't like default, and so it means that you can get different challenges without anyone having to look really bad. If that makes sense. Obviously, there are ways to make people to look bad in these things. Don't get me wrong. Still, with Survivor Series matches, like again going back to 2016 one, I only mentioned it because I watched it recently. Obviously, it was a case of Braun Strowman was able to look really good in it, but he got counted out. And it was always, and again, it was a bit of a cop out with some of the big guys throughout the years. They counted out or DQ'd. But it's a case of, well, that's better though than him getting stupidly pinned by someone. Surely, like you're able to just have him in the match still, do his big spots, do big moments, then get counted out. Because of his own kind of doing. And I think similarly with like Iron Survivor or with even like gauntlet matches or whatever, like you have all these different situations where you're creating anyone could win. I think that's, to me, when wrestling works really, and it makes it really fun. Obviously, when we do something, that's why I dislike things like tournaments tournaments mainly the one I don't like because you kind of always see the bracket and go, well, we know this is most likely what's going to happen. Yeah. And most of these things are always like, we know what's going to happen, at least in the semi-finals. There's rarely a surprise where we're like, oh.
That's a good point, actually, because the whole reason why tournaments are fun in legitimate competition is because they are so random and surprises can happen. Yeah. Like the old FA Cup, upsets, like that is massive. Sticking with football, in a World Cup, something, anything could happen sort of thing. But yeah, in wrestling, because of the way you predict things anyway, the way you feel the company's going, tournaments are something that are pretty much dead in the water as soon as they begin. So they kind of, if they're going to do anything with tournaments, they need to really freshen them up. To be fair, lately they've done more of the kind of triple threat tournament matches, haven't they? So that's been the new way to do it, and that's been quite interesting, which does add that slightly more element of kind of,
I think it's
different possibilities.
People as well, isn't it? I think that's what it's about. I think obviously one of the main criticisms of Triple H, that I think people have is that there are times where we're not seeing a lot of wrestlers. Obviously he stripped the pay-per-views back to 5 matches for the most part. A lot of stuff is just singles matches or just tag as in 2 versus 2 matches. We're not getting something which you do when you look back on the old pay-per-view cards, you do see, again, love him or hate him, but Vince would book multiple matches, and there'd be pre-shows, there'd be everything. And again, a lot of it is because of how the era's changing. And I guess, deeper diving into Netflix stuff is very integral here. But obviously the only thing I'd say is look how they before they were doing this for TV, people and for pay-per-view and for sponsors. And then when they had a network, they were doing it to get subscribers. So it's always a case of we need content. We need more content, more matches, more people to basically entice people to subscribe. And that's why they had the pre-show. The whole pre-show and the matches and stuff was obviously to get people to subscribe to the network to watch pay-per-view. Because I remember the whole hook point for a long time was first month free, wasn't it? So obviously they knew people watching the pay-per-view, watching the pre-show on YouTube. If you signed up right then and there, you could watch the show. You was about,
the full show,
10, 50, or more than that. You're paying paying for it on traditional pay-per-view. You could watch it for free right then and there, and it was about setting it that way. And so they knew they needed to have was matches, and particularly once it got 2018, 2019, when Vince really started hoarding all the wrestlers. So it's bonkers that was a thing that happened. Vince literally just saw someone about to maybe do something anywhere in the world and went, "Yeah, we've got to sign him."
Yeah.
Why need it, Vince? Don't know.
I mean, to be fair, they did that to the entire UK indie scene as well.
Yeah.
Oh, is it kind of reestablished itself after massively being killed in the 1980s? Oh yeah, we'll nickel them.
Yeah, it's bonkers. I mean, there's an episode of Raw you can watch, like if you're into tag wrestling, where literally you've got like FTR, you've got the Usos, you've got Gallows and Anderson, you've got what do you call it? The Major Brothers, Zack Ryder and thing. You've got literally some of the best tag teams to ever do it. Just
all there at once.
Some tags on Raw for like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And then he brings in like Ricochet, and he brings in all these people, and you're just like you can't digest anything because there's so many people.
Yeah.
And obviously, Triple H is kind of. Triple H, Vince as well, when he released people during the pandemic, has kind of addressed that problem a bit. But it got to the point where, it's bonkers. But now we've gone to this 5-match format. So I think it's very good that people do get other times to spotlight what they do, because it does seem that on the pay-per-view, at least, it's not going to happen for a lot of these people, which... It'll be interesting now. Again, this is a thing. Again, we probably need to do a whole video about the Netflix thing. I just think it's going to change a lot of how they do things, because they are going from subscribe to us and our thing that only we answer to, essentially. Like, obviously, the network didn't get enough subscriptions because of them. They haven't got a boss over them going, get subscriptions. It's them saying subscribe to us. But now they've got a boss above them paying a lot of money. And we've seen them fumble deals before. And never forget the WGN network and Superstars that holds it back what they have with them, because they did the debut show and had John Cena and Undertaker on, and then 2 weeks later it was Vladimir Kozlov and Santino Marella. Like you can't you can't promise and then take away, and then it goes to basically the highlight show, and then obviously that show got cancelled. But Netflix, you have to imagine they're going to be expecting like a lot of stuff. And although they're not going to have the TV networks, obviously recently, it's come out about, these censored chants, and obviously NXT has suffered a little bit from. NXT used to really use the overrun quite creatively throughout the years. Like it, and obviously now it's on network television. It can't, it has to finish in 2 hours, and it's led to some awkward finishes of the shows. Because as it's been like, there was one a couple of weeks ago where it was the main event. Legitimately, the finish was like 1, 2, 3. It was like goodbye. That's it. Not even like here's your winner. It's like,
it's almost WCW levels, that isn't it? They used to get caught out with that a lot.
But it'd be interesting seeing, because I do. My bold prediction is I think Netflix will get in and say, look, we want more matches than just 5, mate. Like, because obviously, but you've got to think about, they have to deal with obviously having chapters, having maybe playlists for certain wrestlers. There's loads of stuff to maybe consider here.
I mean, to be honest, there is a bit of a blueprint, like I say, with Peacock. They've kind of had that already with the whole kind of someone to answer to in that way, because it's a similar service. It's not the same. Netflix is a completely different beast. In like you say, it's the biggest streaming network out there, surely. But they've kind of had that. And if you remember when they first went to Peacock, as they do with to WWE's credit, whenever they go somewhere, they go hard on it. Right. The only reason why I knew as a teenager what. As a kid, what things like TNN and Spike and USA were, is because they were like Raw Homecoming. It was Homecoming, but not for us. We didn't have the USA Network, but we still watched it, and I was hyped about it, even though I didn't have the USA Network. Nothing was changing for me. It was still on Sky Sports. But so to their credit, they've always been good at that. And I think if you look back to when they first went to Peacock, it was mad how much Peacock was features on the show, and how much this for our Peacock's exclusives and all that kind of stuff.
Well, don't they having like a Netflix conference call or something, or there's something coming up on December 3rd? I read about it earlier. I think they're having like a kind of press day or something.
Right.
They're obviously several WWE superstars being in attendance for it. So I think that's something, again, it's very much up their street. And a lot of it is, again, because they went public, and people forget this, they went public, and so they do have shareholders to answer to. They have obviously board members who expect results and stuff. So it is a case of you know, and they want people to be those kind of spokespersons, you know, for the brand, and obviously trying to get that new fan base, because it's a mix. You know, Netflix is, like I said, it's everyone. Netflix is you know, like some people even have it without realizing they have it, probably. You know,
yeah, sure.
It's one of those. You know, over here it gets bundled into phone contracts and you know, all sorts of stuff. You know, all sorts of people get it. You know, bundled in with stuff. You know, Sky TV has access to it. You know, via thing. So there's so many people that they won't even know they could get to watch WWE.
Yeah,
I think it's quite fun. And you know, there's so much more we can do on this. Obviously,
definitely,
and all that kind of stuff close to the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, bear in mind over here it will be obviously around Christmas and New Year's time, but we will obviously try and give that content because we feel it's going to be a very, very exciting period. Especially because we have announced that over here the network is closing on New Year's Day.
Oh yeah, so what? Do we get Netflix on New Year's Day then? Like the old content, would that start going on there straight away? Or?
Yeah, they're essentially saying from 1st of January it will be on Netflix.
Okay,
network's closing, but we don't know if there's going to be like an overlap, and obviously bear in mind, it's going to be in American time zones, then that will obviously change how it's going to be for us. So yeah, maybe don't drink too much on New Year's Eve, Scott.
I think it's only, but the Americans are only getting Raw, aren't they? Like everything's staying on Peacock for them, so it's only us, not only us, but other countries as well. I think maybe Australia as well.
Fair few countries
getting everything. You'd imagine it would go that way in the States as well eventually. But it's a huge deal, and like you say, there's a lot to kind of dive into it, and hopefully we will manage to do that before a few weeks before the show. But we definitely looked at least cover the show itself anyway. We'll probably be hitting you with a build up into it. We'll treat it like a bit like a PLE as much as we can, really.
They said it is a pay-per-view level show.
If they're treating it like a pay-per-view, we'll treat it like a pay-per-view. And again,
on Monday,
Saturday night main event
which
as
would
well.
be interesting, because the last time I think we did have to deal with something or not on a thing was obviously when they had Taboo Tuesday. But obviously this is an episode of Raw. We get that, but obviously it feels pay-per-view level worthy, which I think is very good. And it'd be interesting to obviously seeing if that maintains as well. And obviously we're in a very exciting period by then, because obviously one has to imagine we're going to get confirmation of multiple Royal Rumble entrants on that episode as well. And we know the direction we're heading in. They may even jump the gun and even announce maybe the first bloody entrant for the Chamber. We never know. Or there'll be a big kind of WrestleMania maybe implication happening. So I think it's going to be a very, very important one to be watching.
Again, we compare it to last year. Day one Raw, The Rock came back, and that changed everything. So definitely seeing it be a big show. As I say, we will be hitting you with as much content around that and Saturday night main event as we are, of course, here for the Survivor Series kickoff show. Of course, as we mentioned earlier on when we came on the air, WWE haven't done a kickoff show. That's why we've done one instead. Of course, we've been doing our kickoff shows alongside theirs anyway. We've been doing these watch-alongs of the kickoff because I've really enjoyed these fan events they've been doing. They're quite fun. But sadly, didn't do one this time around because, again, they gave the wrestlers Thanksgiving off, that's a nice little note, isn't it? But we've been covering of course the card in depth, and we're going to continue to do so as we head into Survivor Series with the build-up show. Of course, you are watching, if you're watching live, you're watching us on Friday night, but this is going to play as a repeat on the build-up show before we again jump in live on Saturday before the PLE. The idea is to kind of get us and you guys in the mood for the PLE, and as Lucas said earlier on, it's a bit strange doing it the night before sort of as well here with the kickoff show in our timeline at least. But yeah, it's been real fun to do so. Before we do get out of here, Lucas, just want to ask you kind of quick fire really, thing you're most looking forward to about each of these matches, and then at the end of it, ultimately which one you're just most looking forward to, right? So we'll start with one we touched on quite a bit earlier on, LA Knight Nakamura. Quick fire, what you're most looking forward to about this as far as potential kind of finishes and where it leads to.
I'm hopefully looking forward to Shinsuke Nakamura raising that belt. After a very good match, but after Logan Paul, after LA Knight has been beaten up basically. I mean, yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to keep it short, but yeah. That's it.
Gotcha. And IC title. I know we're both really, really, really hopeful Sheamus wins it eventually. But ultimately, what are you most looking forward to, I guess, in this one?
It's going to be Braun, really. Like, he's going to do something crazy. We know he is. He's a freak. Like, he's ridiculous. They've got all these people that are just bloody ridiculous. Like, I can't, in one of those where he does something so freaky, I can't even think what it's going to be. But it's just the fact that he's one of those guys just goes, oh yeah, the guy's at 20 foot. Well, I'll just jump. And
yeah, there will be like you say. You don't know what it is, but there's always a big talking point coming out of a Braun Breaker match. He is one of those really.
There's generally nothing he can't do. Yeah. I genuinely believe that he could be blindfolded and put in the ring with someone he'd never seen before, and still just do what he does. Like, because he's just ridiculously good at what he does.
Yeah, he's great.
The big talking point of that will be something that Braun Breaker does, and it should be.
Yeah, man, I agree with you. I think even if he doesn't win the match and keep the title, I think he will be a highlight of the match for sure. And I mean, just looking at the three of them on that graphic, really can't wait to see what they pull off together. I think it'd be really good. Again, men's WarGames, we touched on this quite a lot. You're not in the camp of believing there will be a Sammy turn, a Punk turn, or a Heyman turn, or anything like that. So with that in mind, what do you think the big talking point coming out of this should be? Or because we kind of touched on it already, but what would you like it to be at least for this?
I'd like it to be Brock's return, but in the absence of that, I would just like to be seeing what Bronson Reed does. I think, giving the big spots to the don't like using this term, but lower card members would be the right call.
Yeah, 100%. And again, we talked ourselves into a bit of fantasy booking earlier, didn't we, with that bloody mega splash from the top onto the Usos. So let's hope we see something like that. Gunther versus Damian Priest. Now, this isn't even a match we've touched on, really. But we've got our predictions as well. Again, if people haven't seen them already, go back and check those out if you want to hear our thoughts in a bit more detail on these matches as well. And, of course, as I mentioned on the build-up show, which, depending on whether you're watching live or on demand, this will be coming up essentially on Saturday before the PLE itself. But once again, Gunther versus Damian Priest. What are your thoughts on this one, mate? What are you most looking forward to seeing as a potential outcome?
It's always weird when they go back to something they've already been to. If there's been a gap. I think it should be a decent match.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those where it feels harsh saying this, but it is just... I think because obviously at least the US title match has Chink of Return, kind of has a buzzing.
Something's different.
Then you have the IC title, which is triple threat, and it does seem on paper that's gonna be a bang of a match. It just seems that has the potential to be a show stealer. But this just feels a bit mid.
Yeah, no, 100%. And again, I feel bad saying it. I feel like I've been almost bashing this match, but I love both guys. I think they're great in ring and yeah, I feel awkward feeling this way, but we've seen this already, and I don't think we're going to see a shock here. So why are we doing it?
I just want Gunther versus Goldberg. Like,
I mean, maybe something happens at the end of this that leads to that. Maybe that's what this is all about. Like, you can't have too much of a distracting match because, I mean, I said this in my prediction. If Damian wins, don't get me wrong, I'll be massively shocked, and it will be a talking point coming out of it. And I do believe they can have a great match. It's just that I don't believe that will happen. Therefore, it feels like there's no jeopardy in this match. But anyway, let's try and be a bit more positive. Let's move into the women's WarGames match. We touched on it a little bit earlier on, and you did, of course, with your WarGames hot take video as well, how the women don't usually have much going for it as far as factions go. So it feels a little bit more thrown together. And, you look at this graphic, and I think you do see it that way as well. But as I said, just before you came on the air, Lucas, we are looking at various world champions here and future Hall of Famers. So it's not saying this match cannot deliver as a match itself. I just think storyline, it doesn't have as much going for it. Other than the Jade Cargill situation, but none of us know where that's going. So with all that on its plate, what do you think as far as the women's WarGames match goes?
Yeah, see, this is the thing. This would be perfect if it was just a normal Survivor Series match, personally. I have no gripe with it. I think it'd be perfect. Nice opener. Nice way to open the show. With 5 women versus five women, the elimination rules, they could still do some storyline elements with it. If obviously the Jade Cargill thing is a work, they obviously have the typical Jay Cargill music plays while Bianca's in the ring or Naomi's in the ring, and no one comes out, and they get rolled up, and then Jay Cargill finally does come out, kind of thing, something like that. But there'll be several different ways to get that same reaction, that same thing, without having to, put people's lives at risk. To be fair, like it's a very dangerous match. You're forcing people to do the stuff where you don't need to. You just have them do a normal match. But looking at the match graphic, it does seem odd that you got Bayley and Io Sky on the same team. Obviously, the whole thing.
Forgot about the whole damage control, haven't they? Yeah.
You've got the Judgment Day, who are no longer the original members at all. Candice LeRae just clinging on to a job. At this point, that's the possible way.
She's done well lately, though. I mean, I think she's been performing well. So
it's hard. It's hard for me because I've always found her like she needs someone with her. Like, I think either a tag team or she had the thing with Indy Hartwell and
India.
So yeah, it'd be interesting what she does in this one. I mean, Triple H is obviously he's a fan of Johnny Gargano, so I think it's one of those where it's just Candice comes with the package, I guess. But yeah, I mean, in terms of this match, though, I think the main talking point will probably be something Bianca Belair does. She's obviously just insanely talented and usually is one of those kind of MVPs of this kind of match. Like, she can do it all. Io Sky as well, I guess. And I guess maybe have some sort of tease or friction with her and Bayley potentially. Which I don't know if they've mentioned it enough at all, really. I don't know.
I guess because of the focus.
WrestleMania, feud, and now it's just a case of they on the same team. They're happy.
Yeah, I mean, because Io's baby, damage control babyface again now. So it is strange.
Then obviously on the other side you got the Nia and Tiffany thing, which obviously I mean, obviously, I know. She's got the briefcase, and
I mean, that's possible. I mean, what better way than to cash in on someone that's been battered in a WarGames match? Like Nia. I mean, as you said earlier, though, both champs are in this. I think it'd make more sense to be Nia, but
I think it has to be Nia, doesn't it? Because isn't it the contract for that brand's? I think it was, isn't it?
Oh, is it?
I think it was the contract was for that brand's belt.
But why would it be that though? Why would it not be?
Well, they changed it this year or last year.
Oh,
it has to be the same brand.
Oh, fair enough. Well, we'll see where they go. I mean, that would be a cool way to throw a surprise in the show. But hey, pretty much all of the matches have potential for some sort of surprise or
crazy, isn't it?
Kind of big twist and turn. So it'd be interesting to see how it does go. Again, we've been kicking off Survivor Series weekend here with our weekend kickoff stream. But if you are watching live, then we'll be back before the PLE kicks off on Saturday. If you're watching on the build-up show, hey, stay tuned. This recorded section is ending. You are about to go live with us once again as we dive into Survivor Series much further. I've held back on some of my thoughts there because Lucas isn't going to be with us on that stream, sadly. So really wanted to just kind of get his thoughts on it, and I'll dive a little bit deeper myself and hopefully have some guests with us on the build-up show as well. But really appreciate you coming on, man. I also want to say I appreciate you wearing a Christmas top, and I want you to show it off because I haven't seen it properly yet. So what's going on there?
I don't want to get thing with copyright. This has Chedington.
Oh, look at that!
Yeah, that's my hand. There we go. It's a Chesington Winter's Tale.
Nice. You're fully in
loads
the
of Christmas stuff though. There'll be lots of Christmas stuff, and we're doing stuff in December. Lots of Christmas shirts, hoodies, all that kind of stuff.
Nice one. Before you know what, that reminds me. We could go half hour talking about this alone, but quick thoughts because we should get out of it. Quick thoughts on what Charlotte Flair posted.
What'd she post?
The video the other day of Mariah Carey in it, defrosting for Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, I love Charlotte Flair, and I just wanted to win the title every time she comes back. So,
do you think we could see her at Survivor Series? I don't know what her status is. I don't know if she's like fit or what.
It's hard to say now because obviously they do over the top predict people's injuries, don't they? Now, like they seem to they fucking. Also, they slip over in the kitchen or something, and it's like, they're out for like 10 years now.
Yeah.
I don't see where she fits in Survivor Series, but I guess this is the same answer for anyone who's gone for so long, though. I guess she's been gone for a long time.
Yeah, you need a brand new reset anyway. No one remembers what you were doing last anyway. Yeah, I don't remember what she was doing. So it's not like I'm like, oh, she obviously goes after this person. Like you say, she could just do anything.
And I guess that could again, we've spoken a lot about the men's match and the returns and turns or whatever, but we haven't spoken about this. And obviously, we have got Charlotte Flair out from injury. We've got Becky Lynch as well. Obviously, she's let her contract expire. But could she be on her way back?
Yeah, they've got to be. And again, when you think about Netflix WrestleMania season and all that, surely they're going to factor in if they're healthy enough to do so. You'd imagine that's the case. I actually would love.
That's not even mentioning, Hall of Famers, like Trish Stratus and Lita, who were a big part of the product at one point. Like, Trish
decent runs.
Probably some of her best work she's done.
Yeah.
Obviously, I went to the Inside the Ropes thing that she did earlier this year. And, she spoke very highly of the time that she had. And it did speak also very highly about coming back. If obviously she was offered it, the answer, she made it very clear to everyone in that room. The answer is yes.
Yeah.
If she wanted to come back, and there is something, but I think her whole thing was it has to be something more than what she'd done before. Which I really admire and respect. I think it's something where she could take the nostalgia money. There's nostalgia money going from any company in the world would book the Trish Stratus with the Trish Stratus from 2002, 2003. Yeah. Any company in the world would still book that nowadays. She'll make a lot of money. But she wants something new, something challenging. So she said, she was even talking about she wants to do WarGames matches. She wants to do it was really good. I mean, put the full thing up, but it was actually a really good night. But she said she's up for all. She wants to do WarGames matches. She wants to do more hardcore matches. She wants to do all of the stuff. And it's she's got the talent to do it. She's got she clearly can still do it. I thought her versus Becky the Steel Cage was phenomenal.
I love that whole heel run. I thought it was great.
But that's the thing. We're talking about something for the men's match, but the women's, they do have those kind of surprises that could happen. And again, they've got two Rumble matches to set up. And could we start seeing the early players for that match, the women's match, start coming to fruition?
Even that, return Charlotte Flair's music hitting, even though it's annoyingly not her old one, at the Rumble would be a great moment as well. But look, I'd love to see Charlotte Flair come back and put herself into the mid-card tournaments, where I guess the US one started, but the IC one, and everyone's like, oh no, they're going to give her another belt and she don't win it. I just want it to be that swerve. I'd love that. But hey, we'll see if something like that happens. Once again, Luke, it's been great chatting with you, man. Really hope you've enjoyed it as well. And hopefully we'll be back on the channel very soon talking in more detail about those shows coming up. As we say, Saturday night's main event in December, Raw going to Netflix in November. But before all that, of course, we have got Survivor Series. So again, you've been watching the weekend kickoff. Stay tuned to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel for the live portion of the build-up show, and subscribe if you haven't already. I have been Scott. This one over here has been Lucas, and thanks for watching.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.